My family voted me out at Dad's $800 dinner. I quietly handed them a folder with $78,000 in receipts. My sister screamed. Her marriage collapsed. They say family sticks together. Mine stuck to me like leeches. It was my father's 60th birthday, a milestone, as Marla called it in the group chat I was never part of, until it came time to split the bill. A surprise dinner at a mid-range steakhouse. Nothing fancy. The kind of place with leather booths, half-melted butter on top of every steak, and Sinatra playing too loud through the ceiling vents. I paid for the reservation. I paid for the custom cake. I even paid for the damn balloons with his name in gold foil. And when I walked in, 15 minutes early, because I'm always the one who shows up early, I didn't get a smile. No waves. Not even eye contact. Just a weird shift in the air. The kind of silence you feel before someone delivers bad news. Everyone was already seated. My siblings, their spouses. Kids bouncing around with party hats, sugar highs, and zero awareness. My chair was the only one left, wedged between Marla, my older sister, and Darren, the little brother who once called me crying when his car broke down outside Vegas. I'd wired him $1,200 that night without hesitation. No one looked up when I sat down. I asked where Mom was. No one answered. I asked if Dad had seen the gift I left at the front. An engraved watch I'd saved 3 months for. Still nothing. Then Marla leaned toward me, the smell of her rosewater perfume wrapping around me like a chokehold, and whispered, "You're lucky we let you come." I blinked. What? She pulled back, smirking like she just hit a game-winning shot. Then she stood up, raised her wine glass, and tapped it with a dessert spoon. Ching ching. Before we dig into the filet mignon my brother so generously paid for, she started, her voice syrupy and performative. We have an announcement. Conversations dropped. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. It's time we acknowledge something that's been building for years, she continued, now standing behind her chair like some suburban judge delivering a sentence. Trevor has made his choices, his career, his bachelor lifestyle, his little dog over there, she gestured vaguely toward me. And that's fine. But choices have consequences. My gut clenched. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I did. I'd seen this moment forming in the corners of every group chat I wasn't in, every half-hearted thank you, every subtle dig passed off as a joke. And now here it was. So, after a long family discussion, Marla looked around, locking eyes with Darren, with Mom, even with Dad, who didn't flinch. We've agreed to cut ties. As of tonight, you're no longer part of this family. There was a pause. Not the kind that leaves room for someone to object, but the kind that gives space for everyone to show where they stand. And then, applause. Scattered, awkward clapping, like a bad speech at a wedding. My cousin Tasha let out a woo and raised her cocktail. Darren nodded like he just signed off on a group project. My mother kept eating her salmon, eyes fixed on her plate like nothing was happening. I turned to my dad. You're okay with this? He sipped his scotch and muttered. It's probably for the best. My mouth went dry. I sat there in a room full of people I'd financially supported for over a decade. People whose mortgages I floated, whose kids I'd taken on weekend trips, whose emergencies always somehow became my responsibility. You rehearsed this, I said quietly. Marla gave me that same fake smile she wore at every Christmas brunch. Of course we did. We wanted to be respectful. Respectful. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a thick white envelope. Heavy, deliberate, sealed. I set it on the table. Not with force. Just finality. Then you won't need this. Marla raised an eyebrow. What, your will? I smiled. Close. It's everything you thought I'd never say out loud. She rolled her eyes and grabbed the envelope. Tore it open like she expected to see a childish rant, or maybe another check with a passive-aggressive note. Instead, she found a stack of papers. Printouts. Dates. Transfers. Screenshots. Names. Her hands started to tremble. But before we get to that moment, before the screaming, the gaslighting, the fallout, I need to tell you how we got here. Because no one cuts off a family without a reason. And in my case, I had 78,000 of them. They didn't always hate me, not exactly. It was more like I gradually stopped being useful in the way they preferred. When I was a kid, I was the quiet one. The mature one. The one who didn't cause trouble. Didn't ask for much. Didn't need reminding to do his homework. While Marla was throwing tantrums and Darren was breaking lamps, I was reading books and fixing the Wi-Fi. And the thing about being low maintenance in a dysfunctional family, you don't get praise. You get ignored. I moved out at 18. No drama, no big goodbye. I packed up a U-Haul, signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment an hour away, and started putting myself through college. 2 jobs. No help. My mom called me stoic, like it was a compliment. My dad said, "That's just how Trevor is. Self-sufficient." What he meant was, we don't have to worry about him. And they didn't. Not when my roommate stole from me. Not when I missed a semester because I couldn't afford textbooks. Not when I graduated with honors, alone, with no one in the audience. But they remembered me the day Marla got fired. "Trevor, can you cover rent this month? Just until she finds something." They remembered me when Darren's wife had a baby. "Trevor, we were hoping you could help with the crib, and maybe the car seat, and the hospital bill." They remembered me every holiday season, every unexpected expense, every urgent situation. And I helped. Of course I helped. Because I told myself it was temporary. That family shows up when it matters. That they'd do the same for me if the roles were reversed. Except the roles never reversed. I made it. I worked my way into a tech startup, then another. I learned to budget, to invest, to build stability. And as my paychecks grew, so did the requests. Bigger, bolder, more entitled. No please, no if you're able. Just, we need this. You can afford it. Marla once called me Trevi, like an ATM. They laughed when I protested. "Don't be so sensitive," Darren chuckled. "It's just a nickname." The thing is, I am sensitive. I just stopped showing it. Somewhere along the way, my role shifted from brother to emergency fund. If I missed a birthday party, I was selfish. If I questioned a loan, I was greedy. If I said no, I was pulling away. But the real turning point was last year. Marla wanted to open a boutique wellness studio. Yoga, smoothies, candles. "It'll be huge," she said. "It's not just a business, it's a movement." She asked me to co-sign the loan. I said no. I said it calmly, politely. Even offered to review her business plan. Help her find a grant. She didn't want help. She wanted a signature, a guarantee, an insurance policy wrapped in brotherly obligation. She hung up on me. And that was the last time she called. After that, the walls closed in. Mom stopped texting me those guilt-laced Bible quotes. Dad only replied in one-word answers. Darren blocked me on Instagram. Marla posted a long, cryptic story about cutting out toxic people who drain your energy, accompanied by a photo of her holding sage and staring into the sun. Then came the group photo at Easter. Everyone is smiling in front of Mom's house. Everyone but me. No invite, no explanation. I sat in my apartment that day, eating leftover Chinese food, scrolling through my bank records. I went 5 years back, then 7. Tallying every payment, every Venmo, every "just until next Friday" that never came. It added up to over $78,000. $78,000. Gone. And you know what stung more than the money? Not once did anyone offer to pay me back. Not even a $10 gift card. Not even a thank you card. So I started building the folder. Receipts, text threads, screenshots, dates, transfers. I kept it organized, like I do everything. Color-coded tabs, summary sheet, chronological order, even a timeline of family events they excluded me from. Petty? Maybe. But I wasn't planning revenge. I was building proof of everything they refused to see. Because I knew, deep down, that a storm was coming. And when it finally hit, I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to cry. I wanted to sit at that dinner table, look them all in the eye, and show them exactly what they'd done. No yelling, no pleading, just facts. Neatly printed. 3 hole punches, and impossible to ignore. Marla's smirk died the moment she hit page 2. At first, she flipped through the folder like it was a joke. A passive-aggressive birthday card, maybe. Or a petty spreadsheet from her uptight brother who couldn't take a joke. But then her eyes froze. Her face dropped. The table quieted. Her fingers trembled as she turned another page. Her mouth twitched, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. "What is this?" she muttered. Darren leaned over. "What's going on?" She didn't answer. She just stood up. Too fast, knocking her wine over in the process. The glass rolled across the table and spilled into Dad's lap. He jumped, cursing. But Marla wasn't looking at him. She was staring at me. "You had no right," she hissed. I sat still, calm, unmoving. "You had no right to save all this," she said louder now, pointing at the folder like it was a bomb. "This is a violation. You're twisted." No one moved, not even the kids. My mother slowly set her fork down, her face pale, her lips slightly parted. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. Joel, Marla's husband, picked up the folder and began reading. Then he said it out loud. $78,000? He looked at me, eyes wide. I nodded once. Verified. "Every cent. Is this from you to them?" "Over 7 years," I said. Silence again. A silence so thick you could feel it pressing against your chest. Joel flipped more pages. "Credit card charges, dental bills, Cabo flight confirmation?" He stopped, narrowed his eyes. "Wait, what's this hotel booking? Santa Monica?" Marla's eyes widened. She reached for the folder, panicked. "That's nothing. That was work." Joel didn't move. "You went to a hotel for 3 nights with someone named Ryan?" "I told you," she started. He held up his hand. "You told me you were at a wellness retreat with your mom." And just like that, the cracks turned into fault lines. Joel got up and walked out, folder in hand. No shouting, no scene. Just a door swinging shut. My mother finally spoke. "You kept records of everything?" I turned to her, my voice even. "Someone had to. You never remembered." She blinked, looked down at her plate, then whispered, "We didn't mean to make you feel like an outsider." "No," I said. "You meant to make me feel useful." She looked up, eyes wet. "That's not fair." "It's honest." Then my dad cleared his throat. "Okay, we all got a little emotional. Let's calm down before this gets out of hand." Out of hand. He still thought this was salvageable. That's the thing about people like them. They don't hear you until you burn the whole house down. And even then they complain about the smoke. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out another envelope. Dad rolled his eyes. "What now?" I placed it in front of him. "This one's not about money." He opened it. Read the first line. Then I froze. "Power of attorney. Revoked?" he said. "Medical proxy. Emergency contact. Financial fallback. All of it. Revoked. I am no longer legally, financially, or emotionally responsible for this family." My mother gasped like I'd slapped her. "You can't mean that." "I do," I said. "And it's already been notarized. You'll get the formal notice on Monday." "You're being cruel," Marla snapped, re-entering the room, her mascara smudged. "No," I said, standing up. "I'm being done." Marla looked at our mother, searching for support. "You're really letting him do this?" my mom whispered. "He's not listening." "No," I said again, louder this time, looking around the table. "You're not listening. You had years to listen. Birthdays, holidays, hospital calls, group texts. I gave you time. I gave you money. I gave you patience. And when I finally stopped, just once, you exiled me like I was some distant cousin who showed up drunk." I leaned forward, palms flat on the table. "I was your emergency contact. And now I'm the emergency. But here's the difference. I'm not here to fix it anymore." No one said anything. Marla stared at me like I was a stranger. Darren wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother looked at the folder, then at the envelope, then at the empty seat where Joel had been. Then I said it. The line I'd rehearsed for weeks. "You didn't lose a brother tonight. You lost your backup plan." And with that, I picked up my coat, took one last look around the table, and walked out. No shouting. No slamming. Just footsteps. Quiet. Steady. I left them sitting in their own mess. Half-eaten cake, warm wine, and cold silence. I got in my car, turned off my phone, and drove home. For the first time in my life, no one could reach me. And for the first time, I didn't want them to. That night I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd break down on the drive home, shaking, breathless, running over everything I said and wondering if I'd gone too far. But instead, I felt something else. Stillness. Like a storm had passed and left behind nothing but clean air. When I walked into my apartment, it was quiet. Just me and the faint hum of the fridge. No half-yelled conversations bleeding through the walls. No group text buzzing my phone. No passive-aggressive voicemails from Mom. No guilt-laced Bible quotes from Marla. No, we're still family messages begging for one more favor. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and let the silence settle into my bones. For the first time in years, no one needed anything from me, and I wasn't racing to fill the empty space. The next morning I did something small, something ridiculous. I made pancakes. Not for a brunch, not for a family visit, just for me. Eggs, blueberries, a little bit of cinnamon. I sat at the table with my dog snoring at my feet, fork in hand, and I took my time. No texts came in, no emergency requests, no guilt. It felt like freedom. And then came the second feeling. Clarity. I started going for runs in the morning. I stopped checking social media for clues about whether Marla and Joel were still together. I deleted group threads, froze the shared accounts, changed my passwords, removed Mom as my emergency contact, added a friend instead. I made a list of things I'd put off. Doctor's appointments, dentist, therapy. Yeah. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I needed help learning how to not carry everyone else's weight. How to say no without guilt. How to stop confusing obligation with love. My therapist asked, "When was the last time someone gave to you without expecting something in return?" I couldn't answer. So I decided to change that. I started volunteering once a week, at a shelter, helping clean and set up meals. No one there knew me as the guy with a six-figure salary or a record of debt repayments to ungrateful family. No one asked me for money. They just said, "Thank you," and meant it. It was weirdly healing. And slowly, my world got bigger. I applied for a new job in a new city. Something closer to the coast. Something quieter. I didn't ask for advice. I didn't check if it would inconvenience anyone. I just did it. Got the offer. Took it. Packed up. A week before I moved I got a letter. No return address. But I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside, 3 pages. Front and back. Page 1 was regret. "We never meant to make you feel unwanted." Page 2 was guilt. "Marla's going through a lot. Joel left. Dad's blood pressure is high. Ellie misses her uncle." Page 3 was the ask. "We're behind on the mortgage. Just a little help. One last time. Then we promise." I didn't read the rest. I folded the letter. Dropped it into the trash. And exhaled. They didn't want me back. They wanted access. They wanted the version of me who didn't say no. The one who paid quietly. Who swallowed resentment with a smile. But he's gone. That guy, Trevor the fixer, the wallet with legs, isn't here anymore. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart without him. They found other people to lean on. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they had to finally face their own mess. Either way, not my problem. Since the move, life's been quieter. I go to bed without my phone on. I wake up when the sun hits my face. I take long walks. I read again. I cook for myself. I sleep better. I breathe deeper. No one has shown up at my door. No dramatic voicemail. Just silence. And for the first time, I'm thankful for that silence. Sometimes I think about Ellie. About what she'll be told about me. About how they'll spin the narrative when she's old enough to ask. But I also know this. She'll grow up, and she'll notice things. Who helped? Who disappeared? Who always showed up, and who finally stopped? And maybe one day she'll find me. Maybe she won't. But I'll be here. Whole. Unburdened. Me. Someone once asked me if I regretted cutting them off. I said, I only regret not doing it sooner. And I meant it. It's been 7 months since the folder hit the table. 7 months since I walked out of that steakhouse and never looked back. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if they still tell the story, if they laugh it off or spin it differently. Trevor snapped. He lost it. He's punishing us. But then I remember. What they say doesn't matter anymore. Because I'm not there to hear it. And I'm not their version of me anymore. The old me? He didn't leave that night. He died at that table. Between the half-eaten cake and the spilled wine. The man they could guilt, corner, and control. Gone. And what grew in his place wasn't bitterness. It was peace. Not the kind that comes from revenge, or getting the last word. But the kind you find when you finally decide you don't owe anyone your suffering. And if that makes me the villain in their story, so be it. You can be the villain in someone else's story and still be the hero in your own. Since I left, the messages have slowed. At first they trickled in every few days, some angry, some pleading. A few emotional bombs disguised as apologies. But I didn't respond. And eventually, they ran out of ways to get to me. Well, most of them. Last month I got another envelope in the mail. No return address again, but it was my mother's handwriting. 3 words. We're still family. No explanation. No apology. No change. Just another hook. This time I didn't feel a thing. No rage. No sadness. Just nothing. I folded the note and placed it on top of the others in a shoebox marked closure. Then I made dinner and watched a movie. No drama, no spiraling thoughts. Just Tuesday. That's what healing looks like. Not a Hollywood moment. Not a dramatic monologue in the rain. Just a regular Tuesday that feels like yours. I still go to therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I'm rebuilding. Slowly. With intention. I'm learning how to stop saying, I'm fine when I'm not. I'm learning how to choose myself without guilt. I'm learning that boundaries aren't punishments, they're clarity. Sometimes I wonder how I stayed so long. How many dinners I sat through with clenched teeth. How many favors I granted while quietly dying inside. How many times I convinced myself that family meant tolerating pain. But now I know the truth. Family is not whoever shares your blood, it's whoever respects your boundaries, your value, your peace. And if someone only calls you family when they need something, they're not your family. They're your leash. To anyone still stuck in that role, the quiet one, the fixer, the emotional punching bag, I get it. You keep hoping that if you just give a little more, they'll finally see your worth. But they won't. Because people who take without gratitude don't change when you give more. They change when you stop. And yeah, it'll hurt. It'll feel like ripping out a part of yourself. But what comes after? That stillness? That freedom? It's worth it. People say things like, blood is thicker than water. But that's not the full quote. The real phrase is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Translation? Chosen bonds are stronger than inherited ones. I didn't choose my family, but I choose me now. I choose the version of me that's not afraid to say no. The one who doesn't apologize for being tired. The one who wakes up without dread. The one who makes pancakes just because it's Sunday, and the sun is out. A few weeks ago, a friend asked me something. Do you think they'll ever change? I took a breath. Maybe, I said. But I'm not waiting around to find out. If they do, great. If they don't, that's not my problem anymore. I used to think that walking away meant giving up. That cutting ties meant I failed as a son, a brother, a good person. But now I know. Walking away was the bravest thing I've ever done. Because staying quiet? That was easy. Saying yes? That was automatic. But choosing myself? That took everything. So if you're wondering whether you're heartless for drawing a line, you're not. You're not selfish. You're not cruel. You're not wrong. You're just done. And that's not a weakness. That's freedom. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. My sister banned my husband from her wedding. We showed up anyway. Her fiancé shoved him in front of everyone, and then posted lies online. My sister and I have always had an up and down relationship. We adored each other, but we were not the type of sisters to share every idea or secret. We'd had some disagreements certainly, but they were usually about trivial matters or differing perspectives on family roles. But altogether I adored her. I was pleased with her accomplishments, supported her, and had been at her side through every life event thus far. We had a really nice connection until this wedding disaster. I've been married to Dan for about 4 years, and he fits in well with our family. Dan was the type of guy who made an effort to connect with the people I cared about, and I admired that. Because he had no siblings, he treated my sister as if she were his own, and they shared a light-hearted bond that reminded me of bickering siblings. They were constantly teasing each other, and he was always there for her when she needed it. She had been battling with a business venture for about a year. She wanted to start a modest, online jewelry company, and Dan provided her an interest-free loan to help her get started. It was a significant sum, and I was glad that he was prepared to help her. So when her wedding invitation arrived with that bizarre note asking me not to bring Dan, I was utterly taken off guard. It felt like a slap in the face, given how close they were. I read the note at least 5 times, trying to figure out whether it was a joke, or if I had missed some hidden message. Dan laughed it off at first, assuming she was planning some sort of wedding prank on him, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I attempted to contact her directly by texting her a few casual questions about the wedding, but she was vague in her responses, stating she was busy planning and would call back later. Since I couldn't obtain a clear answer from her, I decided to phone my mother. When I inquired whether she'd heard anything about Dan not being invited, she just laughed and replied, "Oh, you know how your sister is. She's just being her silly self." She assumed my sister was preparing something humorous for the reception. Her reaction was unhelpful and simply added to my uncertainty. My mother didn't appear to take it seriously, so I assumed it was simply a harmless prank. I was still unsure, but I couldn't see how bringing him would cause any significant harm. After all, it was a wedding. It was intended to be a happy occasion, a time for family to gather, not strange constraints and mind games. We arrived at the wedding location together. As soon as we went in, some folks gave us strange stares. I tried to dismiss it, focusing on the joy of the day. I believed they were merely observing us since Dan and I had dressed more professionally than normal to show respect for the big day. Then I saw my sister. She was in the middle of a chat with several of her bridesmaids, but when her gaze fell on Dan, her entire countenance transformed. Her face plummeted, and then changed into a startlingly angry expression. She stormed over, her voice trembling with rage as she demanded why Dan was there. She did not try to keep her voice quiet. Everyone around us could detect the sharpness in her voice. The atmosphere was strained and I felt heat rise to my face, embarrassed by her reaction. I tried to pull her aside for a private conversation, but she insisted he wasn't supposed to be there and that I was violating her desires. In an attempt to calm her down, I reminded her that the note seemed like a prank, and even Mom thought so. I asked her to take a breath and tell me what the real problem was, but she didn't respond directly. Instead, she began yelling harder, accusing me of attempting to spoil her day. Her fiancé noticed the noise and rushed in. I expected he'd try to mediate and calm her down. Instead, he quickly took her side, standing protectively next to her and staring at Dan. Then, out of nowhere, he stepped up and gave Dan a hard shove, telling him to go immediately. I was extremely surprised. The issue had escalated well beyond my expectations, and I was divided between protecting my husband and keeping what little peace I could still have with my family. But by that point, things had gone too far. With a broken heart, I grasped Dan's hand and departed the event. That night, I was in disbelief. Dan was quiet, and while he didn't say it out loud, I could tell he was sad. He hadn't intended to cause a scene or upset anyone. We truly believed we were not doing anything illegal. Later that night I tried phoning my mother and sister, wanting to clear things up and apologize for whatever unstated boundaries we had violated. But no one responded. 2 days later, Dan handed me his phone and urged me to look at a post written by my sister's husband. I opened it to find a long, furious rant in which he highlighted degenerate people attempting to disturb our day and stated that some people were plainly fascinated with him and his wife. He didn't name us, but it was clear who he was referring to. Seeing it spread out for all to see seemed like a betrayal. Here was this man, who should have been hospitable to families, openly accusing us of doing something nasty simply because we showed up. It was humiliating and hurtful, and it made me feel helpless. I tried to contact my sister and mother again, expecting that now that the wedding stress had passed, they might be willing to chat. However, my calls were unanswered. All I want to know is what I did wrong. Was I the wrong person for believing my husband would be welcomed? Should I have taken that note seriously, no matter how ludicrous it seemed? I felt I was giving her respect by showing up and being there for her big day. Nevertheless, everything I'd done appeared to have backfired. I told a few close friends, and they were as shocked as I was. They couldn't understand why my sister and her husband reacted so aggressively. Then one acquaintance stated something I hadn't considered, that her spouse might be jealous of Dan's friendship with her, or feel intimidated by his presence. It didn't make total sense to me, but it was the only plausible explanation. Since that post, I have not heard from my sister, or her husband. My family appears to be divided, with some members reaching out to express their regret for what transpired while remaining neutral. It's heartbreaking to realize that my family was dragged into this mess, because I didn't take my sister's note seriously. Now, I'm doubting every decision and conversation, wondering if I should have known better. The worst part is that I feel like I've lost not only my sister, but also my feeling of family unity. I never wanted to create a fuss, or make her special day about anything other than her enjoyment. Now all I have are regrets and questions that I may never have answered. So, Reddit, I'm left wondering, was I wrong to invite Dan? Did I miss a warning sign that I should have seen? Or was I correct in thinking that families should be free to share each other's life without unstated restrictions and harsh reactions? I'm bewildered and confused, and I'm not sure if I'll ever fully comprehend how something that began as a wonderful occasion turned out this way. Update 1. Hello everyone. First and foremost, I appreciate all of your comments and support. I was blown away by how many of you have had similar experiences, and it's reassuring to know I'm not alone in this. Some of your stories have been eye-opening, and they have helped me make sense of the insane events that have occurred. Unfortunately, what I'm experiencing with my family right now is the polar opposite of healing or understanding. After the wedding, we didn't hear from anyone for several days. It was like this strange silence, and I began to assume that perhaps they simply wanted space. Dan and I both assumed they'd come around eventually. But then, out of nowhere, our phones became inundated with text messages. It was as though the floodgates had opened. Messages from relatives, friends, and even people I hadn't spoken to in years, and they weren't offering support or understanding. They were calling me everything from a homewrecker to a spoiled child who had destroyed my sister's wedding day. Some of the texts were so cruel and bizarre that I initially thought they were jokes. But then I realized how serious these people were. One message from a cousin read, "If you loved your sister, you wouldn't have pulled a stunt like that at her wedding." Another family accused me of attempting to spoil the wedding because I was jealous of my sister's happiness. Her husband's social media posts appear to have caused a ripple effect. In his post, he claimed that I was obsessed with their connection, which sparked a frenzy among individuals who assumed the worst of me without even asking for my side. To make matters worse, he implied that I had gone out of my way to disgrace them by coming there with Dan, despite my sincere belief that it was all a misunderstanding. It grew so severe that Dan's own family learned about it. They had been friendly with my sister and were surprised at how things had turned out. His mother even contacted my mother to attempt to clarify matters, only to be told that I had made my bed, and now had to lie in it. My mother's words, apparently. Dan's mother told me this, and I was distraught. My own mother was on my side, believing the horrible lies I told to outshine my sister on her special day. I also began to notice an unusual trend in these messages from family members. Everyone seemed to buy the story that I was obsessed with my sister's spouse, that I was attempting to insert myself into their life, or had some ulterior motive. It sounded ludicrous. Yet folks I'd known my entire life appeared to believe it. And all of this was so terrible and strange because, as I already stated, my husband Dan was like a brother to my sister. They had always shared a sibling bond, nothing more. People were now implying that I had used Dan on purpose to damage her. Meanwhile, my sister had yet to contact me. She was utterly ghosting me, letting her new husband do the talking through his nasty post, and allowing our family to rip me apart. In desperation, I contacted her best friend, thinking she could provide some insight. Her friend informed me she couldn't say much, but she did remark that my sister had been battling with pre-wedding anxieties and had been heavily impacted by her fiancé's perspective on family dynamics. Apparently, he has a history of possessive behavior and even had problems with some of her friends prior to the wedding. That small piece of knowledge set my head racing. What if he was trying to cut her off from her family, beginning with me? A few days later, my greatest fears were realized. A spiteful cousin who has always liked to stir the pot provided me with a screenshot of another post by my sister's husband. And this time, he went even farther, stating unequivocally that he was grateful to finally be free of certain toxic family members who had been attempting to influence his new wife. He hinted that Dan and I were involved in some sort of vengeance against them, and that he was forced to defend his wife from our shenanigans. I could not believe it. Not only was he spreading lies, but he was also making it sound like we had a long history of being toxic to my sister. It was terrifying and embarrassing. Worst of all, people were gobbling it up. All of this had spread to mutual friends who had nothing to do with the family, and I was beginning to feel isolated in my own town. Despite the outrage, I couldn't let it go. I felt compelled to confront my sister and ask her directly what she thought of everything that was said about me. So I called her one final time. She didn't answer, but a few hours later I received a text from her with the following message. "You crossed a line. You can't come back from this. I hope you're happy with the choices you made." The text felt like the end of our relationship. I was startled and heartbroken, trying to figure out how everything had come apart so quickly. Part of me wanted to go on social media to share my side of the story and defend myself against these heinous charges. But Dan begged me to remain silent, reminding me that it would only fuel the flames. And as much as that stung, I knew he was correct. If I started defending myself online, I'd simply appear guilty, as if I had anything to conceal. But it wasn't just about me by this time. Dan was also caught up in this situation. He told me that his own friends, some of whom had seen the post, had contacted him, questioning why he had fallen to that level by showing up. People who had no information about the note or the background had already portrayed him as a disruptive force. It's difficult to put into words how angry, betrayed and sad I feel. My husband has been nothing but kind to my sister, but now he's being dragged through the muck. And, as much as I want I could go back in time and avoid going to that wedding, a part of me believes this would have happened anyhow. It's evident now that her husband was determined to isolate her, and it appears that I was only the first in line to be disconnected. In some ways, I feel as if I've lost not only my sister, but my entire family, as a result of one mistake that was blown out of proportion. I'm now the homewrecker, the toxic family member, the one who's allegedly concerned with upsetting other people's happiness. And all I did was come there to support my sister's wedding. Update 2. There has been a lot going on that I was unaware of until recently. And after a furious talk with my mother, I'm starting to see the situation in a new, troubling perspective. I decided to pay her a visit since I couldn't let things escalate without at least attempting to talk them out. I wanted to clear up the lies and figure out why my family was so readily misled by these damaging rumors. When I arrived, my mother was defensive, repeating what relatives had been saying, that I was seeking attention and making a commotion at the wedding, even calling me a homewrecker for causing trouble in my sister's new marriage. It was the same laundry list of accusations that had been leveled against me for weeks. But she said something that made me freeze in my tracks. "You should have handled things better, especially given how your husband feels about your sister." I wasn't prepared. What exactly was she talking about? I asked my mother to explain what she meant by my husband's affections for her. My mother's expression remained unchanged, and I felt my heart sink into my stomach. She began telling, almost casually, how my sister had been concerned about Dan's feelings, and how that fear had grown since her engagement. It turns out that when my sister got engaged to Trent, she shared with him the relationship she had with Dan, which we all perceived as a sibling bond. But Trent, as I discovered via my mother's remarks, saw things differently. He obviously persuaded her that Dan was drawn to her and could not be trusted. According to Trent, my husband was madly in love with my sister, and he didn't want anyone who loved his bride to attend their wedding. When I asked my mother why she would even consider such a preposterous concept, she shrugged and said that sometimes people hide their feelings effectively, meaning that my husband had been hiding some secret love for my sister all these years. That was absurd. I wanted to laugh, but instead I was filled with rage. Trent's envious anxiety made the brother-sister bond Dan and my sister had always had seem twisted and unnatural. And it wasn't just Trent's notion. My sister and even my mother had been seduced by this wrath. I sat there shivering, wondering how my mother could possibly believe Dan, who had treated my sister with nothing but compassion, would have a secret goal. She claimed she had spotted indicators she hadn't noticed previously, such as when he would lend her money or rush to her aid if she needed it. I could not believe that simple acts of compassion were being turned into something dirty. My mother didn't stop there. She went on to tell me that when my sister first expressed her concerns about Dan, she tried to protect her by staying away from him. Trent apparently informed her that Dan was infatuated and would always pose a threat to their relationship. Trent had even urged her to remove herself from me, claiming that I was fostering Dan's alleged obsession by constantly bringing him around. I couldn't believe what I heard. Trent seemed to have planted seeds of doubt in my sister's mind, changing her perception of Dan, and by extension me. He'd fabricated a story in which Dan and I were both attempting to ruin their happiness, and it was working. I attempted to reason with my mother, telling her that none of this made sense, that Dan had no reason to be in love with my sister, and that we'd all been getting along fine before Trent arrived around. But she would not listen. She insisted Trent saw things others don't, and was only trying to protect my sister. I left her house that day feeling more hurt than before. Trent's jealousy had not only ruined my connection with my sister, but it had also corrupted my mother. Following that, I returned home and told Dan everything. He was speechless. He couldn't believe that his sister-like relationship with her had evolved into this warped story. He remembered every time he'd assisted her, even when he believed he was simply being a helpful brother-in-law, and how those memories suddenly seemed contaminated. He was frustrated, trying to understand how a man he hardly knew had managed to turn my family against us by using jealousy as a weapon. Later, I texted my parents, telling them they could believe anything they wanted, but I had already explained and supported my side. I informed them that I was aware that Dan was being falsely accused, and that if there had been any validity to the accusation, I would have been the first to address it. They needed to understand that I wouldn't stand by him solely because he was my husband. I would never endorse something so heinous if it were real. I went on to add that these charges were ridiculous and extremely painful, and that it spoke a lot about them that they chose to side with their new son-in-law, without providing any real evidence, or even giving Dan or me the benefit of the doubt. It's one thing to support your children, but this, trusting Trent's story without evidence and turning against their own family, was too far. Dan and I didn't have the time or energy for such foolishness, and I wasn't going to sit back and let this absurd, unsubstantiated drama drag us down. I told them that if they wanted to believe in something so stupid, it was their decision. But we didn't want to be a part of this toxic circus anymore. For the time being, we're waiting to see if they'll change their minds or continue to prioritize this false narrative over us. I honestly don't know what will happen next. Update 3. Hello everyone. Things have taken an unexpected turn for the better, though it is still difficult to grasp everything that has occurred. My parents seemed shaken when I sent them that message. I believe they eventually realized how twisted and out of character all these charges were. They took it upon themselves to contact some of our family and discuss all that had happened. I'm not sure what was said during those meetings, but whatever it was, they must have realized how weird and ridiculous Trent's assertions were. Since then, I've gotten apologies from many family members, including cousins, aunts, and uncles. Some even apologized for leaping to judgments before speaking with me. As much as I appreciate them admitting their error, it still aches. I don't like how many of them were willing to believe such a stupid scenario. The idea that they thought Dan was acting inappropriately all along, especially with someone he considered his sister, hurts. I'm delighted they're coming around, but I can't pretend it doesn't make me bitter. But all of it went into the background yesterday night, as something even more unexpected occurred. My sister showed up at my house unexpectedly. She appeared to have been through a lot. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red from crying, and she appeared to have not slept. Despite everything, she is my sister, and seeing her like that broke my heart. I unlocked the door and allowed her in, hoping we could talk and possibly get to the bottom of things. As soon as she sat down, she began crying. Once she had calmed down, she began narrating what had happened to Trent. She told me that she and Trent had just had a heated dispute, which had caused her to see things differently. Through her tears, she confessed that Dan was not the first person Trent had accused of being interested in her. Apparently, this had been going on for a while. While Trent's actions initially appeared innocent, perhaps even flattering in a bizarre sense, she claimed it began when they were out in public, and Trent noticed random males allegedly glancing at her. He'd make tiny remarks about how other males were staring at her improperly. And, while it felt uncomfortable, she assumed he was simply being protective. His behavior, however, became more severe with time. His allegations began to appear in practically every setting, and his attention switched to the individuals in her life, particularly Dan. When he started talking about Dan, he was quite convincing. Trent made it sound like he was truly concerned, as if he was simply looking out for her and wanted to keep her safe from anything unpleasant. He kept bringing it up, and she trusted him enough to go along with it. That is why, when he insisted Dan not attend the wedding, she did not challenge it. She believed she was doing the right thing by listening to her fiancé's fears and following his wishes. However, things took a turn for the worst following their wedding. Trent had begun to accuse an increasing number of individuals of having affections for her, and it was no longer just passing comments. He'd started pressuring her to quit her job, stating one of her male co-workers had eyes for her, and it wasn't safe for her to be near him. She knew that this was not typical at all. Trent was pressuring her to give up her independence and exclude individuals from her life, isolating her. It was no longer only about Dan or chance encounters. It was about having control over who she was and who she surrounded herself with. She felt surprised, deceived, and betrayed when she realized that his so-called protectiveness was actually obsessive and manipulative conduct. She recognized she'd been trapped by his domineering style and said she felt foolish for not noticing it sooner. My sister was obviously heartbroken and ashamed of how she had treated us. She apologized to me, and I could sense regret in her eyes. She also apologized to Dan, explaining how her confidence in Trent had led her to believe all he said, and how she had made a big mistake. For the first time, I could see how deeply she was pained by what she had done, and I knew she truly regretted it. She is currently staying with us to give herself some space and decide what she wants to do next. I know this is a really difficult moment for her, and it's awful to watch her go through it. But at the same time, I'm relieved that the truth has finally come out. My spouse no longer has to endure the burden of false charges, and my family can recognize Trent's behavior for what it is. Whatever happens, I'm ready to be there for my sister. I'm still absorbing everything, but I'm relieved that the truth has finally been revealed, and we can move ahead. Update 4. Hello everyone. I know many of you have asked for an update, so I apologize for the lack of communication. It's been a busy, emotional few months, and a lot has changed. Last time I explained how my sister came over to my house and realized how controlling Trent was. She returned to him, determined to keep her work and not be pushed around anymore. When she told him, however, he went utterly crazy. He accused her of being unfaithful, claiming that if she wanted to continue working, she had to be interested in other men. His reaction was so powerful and uncontrollable that she left again and returned to me, distraught as ever. It was heartbreaking to see her go through this, but it also seemed to give her some perspective. Over the next week, we talked a lot, and she came to recognize that this was no longer a relationship she desired. She made the tough decision to end things and file for divorce. Trent, as expected, reacted negatively. He turned up at my house, pleading and crying, saying that he would change and never act like this again. It was difficult to witness, especially because he appeared truly sorry. But my sister held her ground. She understood that his behavior had crossed so many boundaries that there was no way back to a position of trust. So, in brief, my sister is now going through a divorce. She is going through a terrible period, but I am doing my best to support her. Dan has been keeping his distance, which is understandable. Everything that has happened has put a strain on their relationship, but he remains supportive and checks in on her because he understands she needs all the help she can receive right now. My parents have also stepped up. They've been assisting her with legal matters and providing her with emotional assistance, which has made a significant difference. They've also used this opportunity to apologize to Dan and myself, particularly Dan, for ever believing Trent's charges. It's as if they finally understood how out of touch everything was. To be honest, it's been a difficult trip, but I'm grateful for the clarity it has provided. My sister is doing better, despite the difficulties, and my family has become closer in certain respects. I'd like to thank everyone here for their encouragement and support. It was reassuring to read your words, which encouraged us to be strong and trust in ourselves. Thank you so much for being here through everything. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Am I the asshole for refusing to raise my husband's children from his affair now that he and the woman he cheated with have passed away? Sorry for using a new account. I know that's a red flag, but I don't want to risk using my old Reddit account. My 45F husband, 49M, of 23 years has been having an affair with a 20-years-old girl since 2020. I found out this year when his affair partner gave birth to twin boys in March. Obviously we were going to divorce. We've been hashing things out since. It's been a lengthy process due to some properties in common, and we needed to get an accountant since he used the shared account for his affair. Finally, things seemed to be getting close to the end when both my husband and the woman he cheated with were killed in a car crash. By some miracle, the twin babies were not harmed in the crash. Now they are orphaned and neither set of grandparents can take them in permanently. My husband's parents are both in assisted living. He has no siblings and the only aunt that could take them refuses. She's been child-free her whole life. On the woman's side, I'm not sure the details in full, but her parents are also not able to be involved long-term, and the one sister she has lives overseas. Since we were still married and he had not updated his will, all his assets are set to pass to me and our 2 children. I'm not callous enough to leave those babies with nothing, so I agreed to let whoever is their legal guardian to have the remaining balance in the shared account. About $25,000 in savings. The issue is no one wants to take them in. Now my in-laws are pressuring me to take them in and raise them. The issue is, I don't want to. At all. I wouldn't love them and I don't want to be the evil stepmother. But I know a big part of me will always have a level of resentment towards them. I will probably favor my own children. It's not their fault, but I truly loved my husband and I thought we were happy before I found out about the affair. We have 2 daughters, 14 and 16. Obviously we had disagreements, but never insulted each other before. Then I found out about the affair and he began calling me names and blaming me for his cheating. He became abusive and even tried to kick me off the house, my childhood home that is not shared property for the record. I'm also raising teenagers alone now. I don't have the energy to raise babies anymore. My daughters hate their baby brothers. I tried to get them to spend time with their dad as we were divorcing, but they refused. Since this all was found out because of the babies, there wasn't really a way to sugarcoat the situation. And they are also too old to really get away with it. Most of my friends agree it's not my place to care for those children, but my in-laws, the affair woman's parents and my mother want me to raise them. I know my mom is just having grandkids fever, but it hurts to not have her support. I have to make a decision by next week or the boys will be going into foster care. At the moment they are temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. I feel horrible, but I am very sure I can't take them in. Small update. Hey everyone, this blew up far more than I thought, and I appreciate the well wishes for my girls, the boys and myself. Also for the amount of lovely people offering to see about giving the twins a good home. I might not be their mother, but it does touch me and makes me glad there's good people out there. After thinking carefully and speaking to my lawyer, reading responses, doing research, etc. I plan to speak to the grandparents tomorrow and refuse to take legal guardianship of the boys. I will let them know of the usernames of people that offered meetings for private adoptions or fostering, but my daughters are my priority. It'll be up to the twins' grandparents to decide if they'll proceed with adoption, keep them, or turn them to the state. I wish I had the mental capacity to be the person to do this, but I have 2 girls that are going through a lot and they need my full attention. I'll also be talking to the lawyers to figure out if the boys have any inheritance claim properly. If they do, I'll separate it and leave it to the lawyers to do what they need to do for them to have access when it's best. If they don't, I'll find a way to ensure they have access to the $25,000 I was going to give them since the beginning. I won't do more, however. My moral compass might be biased, but I don't believe I'm obligated neither morally or legally to do more than what the word of law says. I can't help everyone and I shouldn't have to. I have 2 girls that lost their father, 2 girls that need therapy, 2 girls just about to get to college. They've gone through enough without seeing their mother favor the children of their father's mistress. The golden child brother got my fiancée pregnant. After 5 years, he is in a coma, and my mom has asked me to step in as the father for his child. 5 years ago, only a month before I, now 30, was scheduled to get married to my fiancé, I discovered she had been seeing my brother. They came clean to me about it only because she wanted to keep the baby and was pregnant. Apparently ever after Karen and I were engaged, my ex-fiancé Karen, 30F, and brother Chris, 33M, had been sleeping together. Getting engaged was certainly the next step since Karen and I had been dating since our junior year of high school and had stayed together through college as well. Still, she chose to cheat on me with my brother once we became engaged. The only reason that ever happened was that a few days following our engagement, my brother told her he had always harbored her and felt he had to tell her since she was getting married. He was unable to tell her anything regarding these emotions thereafter. She then became aware all of a sudden that she had also been progressively developing emotions for him. She had stayed with me since she was hesitant about him, apparently even flirting behind my back occasionally at family events and other gatherings. 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, I got to know all these things when the two of them sat me down along with my parents and informed me they were intending on getting together. Karen was in love with Chris and they were expecting a baby together, so she could no longer wed me. That day, I was rather agitated, nearly refusing to accept it, and told Karen I wanted her to accompany me home and break this relationship, whatever it was, with Chris. But my mother made it really clear that Chris and Karen would be together and that nothing of the kind was going to happen. Since it was finally their choice, I simply had to find peace with it. That my mother was endorsing anything like this astounds me even now. At least my dad had the decency to appear ashamed and try to comfort me, but my mother openly backed this and even told me that if I objected, I could keep it to myself since Karen was pregnant and I had no right to disturb her in such a delicate state. My mother hardly cared about what I was going through as she was simply insane over at last having a grandchild in the family. She battled with me tooth and nail to defend the behavior under question. Following the incident that day, Karen moved in with my family as her own parents stopped wanting to talk to her once she told them the truth. Obviously, we had to call off the wedding. My parents paid for it so I wouldn't have to worry about that either. But I refused to talk to the family, hence I was kicked out. We have had absolutely zero touch over the last 5 years. My father is the only person who even cared to attempt and get in touch with me. Unfortunately, I was not interested in talking to him either, hence there has been radio silence from their end since I severed contact with them. Karen and I had been together for a very long period, hence it took me a very long time to recover what had occurred to me. I had really loved her, hence it took a lot of therapy to get over it. Even today, I wouldn't say I'm really over it, but I'm handling it. Still, the rest of the family kept in contact with me and I did learn from them that she had a son with my brother. There was no need to get in touch with her after that either, as a paternity test verified that it was my brother's child rather than mine just 1 month after she gave birth. They spent the past 5 years together and finally got married. My mother contacted me out of the blue about a week ago. The golden child brother got my fiancée pregnant. After 5 years, he is in a coma, and my mom has asked me to step in as the father for his child. 5 years ago, only a month before I, now 30, was scheduled to get married to my fiancée, I discovered she had been seeing my brother. They came clean to me about it only because she wanted to keep the baby and was pregnant. Apparently ever after Karen and I were engaged, my ex-fiancée Karen, 30F, and brother Chris, 33M, had been sleeping together. Getting engaged was certainly the next step since Karen and I had been dating since our junior year of high school and had stayed together through college as well. Still, she chose to cheat on me with my brother once we became engaged. The only reason that ever happened was that a few days following our engagement, my brother told her he had always harbored her and felt he had to tell her since she was getting married. He was unable to tell her anything regarding these emotions thereafter. She then became aware all of a sudden that she had also been progressively developing emotions for him. She had stayed with me since she was hesitant about him, apparently even flirting behind my back occasionally at family events and other gatherings. 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, I got to know all these things when the two of them sat me down along with my parents and informed me they were intending on getting together. Karen was in love with Chris and they were expecting a baby together, so she could no longer wed me. That day, I was rather agitated, nearly refusing to accept it, and told Karen I wanted her to accompany me home and break this relationship, whatever it was, with Chris. But my mother made it really clear that Chris and Karen would be together and that nothing of the kind was going to happen. Since it was finally their choice, I simply had to find peace with it. That my mother was endorsing anything like this astounds me even now. At least my dad had the decency to appear ashamed and try to comfort me, but my mother openly backed this and even told me that if I objected, I could keep it to myself since Karen was pregnant and I had no right to disturb her in such a delicate state. My mother hardly cared about what I was going through as she was simply insane over at last having a grandchild in the family. She battled with me tooth and nail to defend the behavior under question. Following the incident that day, Karen moved in with my family as her own parents stopped wanting to talk to her once she told them the truth. Obviously, we had to call off the wedding. My parents paid for it so I wouldn't have to worry about that either. But I refused to talk to the family, hence I was kicked out. We have had absolutely zero touch over the last 5 years. My father is the only person who even cared to attempt and get in touch with me. Unfortunately, I was not interested in talking to him either, hence there has been radio silence from their end since I severed contact with them. Karen and I had been together for a very long period, hence it took me a very long time to recover what had occurred to me. I had really loved her, hence it took a lot of therapy to get over it. Even today, I wouldn't say I'm really over it, but I'm handling it. Still, the rest of the family kept in contact with me and I did learn from them that she had a son with my brother. There was no need to get in touch with her after that either, as a paternity test verified that it was my brother's child rather than mine just 1 month after she gave birth. They spent the past 5 years together and finally got married. My mother contacted me out of the blue about a week ago, which surprised me since she had been the one most in favor of Karen and Chris, like to an unhealthy degree. I had assumed everything was going well for them. Curious just a bit, I decided to contact her back when she emailed me stating she had to talk to me immediately. She cried and conveyed some quite awful news when I phoned her. I found out that my brother had suffered a quite catastrophic accident. It was a hit-and-run case, and sadly, the impact caused him to fall into a coma. The exact length of recovery is unknown. This had happened last week. Just 3 days after the physicians reported things were somewhat severe, my mother decided to give me a call to let me know about it. Initially, I assumed she would want me to see him and be there for the family. I would have been willing to comply since, in spite of all, I believe this is a major issue and it would have still been a fair expectation. I would not want to turn my back on someone in such a horrible state. Then my mother turned completely another way and declared she wanted me to be with Karen and my nephew. Then mother informed me she now expected me to be there for them in my brother's place. I had no idea what that meant either. She informed me that because Chris was essentially not even there anymore, I had to be there for Karen and her child in any manner whatsoever. When I asked her to explain, she expected me to jump in and live with them so I could look after them, not only financially. She claimed she would have taken them in herself, but she was not getting younger and caring for all of them would be too much effort. She was phoning me to let me know this, and she wanted me to decide on the call itself. I clearly lost my cool as she avoided me for 5 years and now wanted me to do something so significant when she was finally speaking to me. Although Karen and her son were all on their own right now and they needed someone to be there for them, I could see that someone from their close family would have been more suited for her than me. Someone she had betrayed and then not even tried to apologize to. Clearly, I told my mother right away that I was not going to do such a thing and that she was stupid for ever expecting me to say yes to that. Then she began fighting with me over the phone, and I had little time to spend. I immediately hung up and then blocked her once more as I was already somewhat annoyed and I wanted to not let her further sour my attitude. After that, I tried to go about my daily business but I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through. I felt terrible for them. That was really strange, thus I clearly was not going to follow what my mother had asked me to and substitute my brother for their family. He was still alive, he had just fallen asleep, but it was not as though he had died already. She was acting as though he had disappeared. I believed that my father would be more rational than my mother, so later that day I chose to phone him instead as I was feeling very lightheaded over this whole situation. After 5 years of no contact, it was somewhat strange to chat to him. Yet after some brief conversation, I asked Chris how he was doing. Right now, he told me, things were not looking very well. Then I expected him to have some decent understanding when I told him about the earlier that day talk I had with my mother. Rather, he also added, my mother was correct to have expectations of me. That truly surprised me since, out of both my parents, my dad was always the more cool-headed one. Now even he was saying such strange things. He said that Karen and I had a history nonetheless and that I am also part of the family regardless of our former 5-year relationship. He stated he truly meant that. In the end I am blood. If someone else could stand up for the family, it should be me, and my mother's expectations are not particularly illogical. And right now I'm not sure what to do. I have been avoiding talking to anyone from my family, including my other relatives, for the past week since I am simply worried that someone would bring this up with me and subsequently I would be obliged to justify my choices. Since I'm not stepping up for my family and I know they truly need me, if not financially, then at least emotionally, I also sort of feel like the bad guy here. Simply said, I'm not sure what to do. Though I know my mother is asking of me something quite strange and illogical, I feel guilty for turning it down straight away. I just feel so strange about this whole thing. I haven't even been down to the hospital to see my brother. Since all of this is so intimate, neither have I been able to discuss this with any of my friends. Although they understand how things have been between my family and me ever since my wedding was put off, this is somewhat more unusual than that. To be honest, right now I'm sharing this on Reddit since I truly believe I need some objective advice on what to do. Whether it's friends or relatives, everyone will have some kind of biased view. I truly need guidance as, without a workable answer to all of this shortly, I fear losing my sanity. Since I discovered Karen had been cheating on me, I really feel like I'm returning to the time of my life when I was obsessing about her and Chris. I don't want to go back to that very dark period since it has taken a lot of time to get out of. Thus, whatever anyone has to say, kindly let me know so I may at least divert myself from the harshness of the opinion. So am I the expletive, for not visiting my family and supporting them following an accident involving my brother. Update 1. Hey buddies, I decided not to visit my family right now. Right now, it is quite too much for me. The things my parents were telling me alone let me realize just how severe my anxiousness had gotten over the past week. But right now I'm back on my anti-anxiety medicines and attempting to handle things. In the comments area of my initial article and even individually in my DMs, to let me know that they are there for me and that I am not alone, a lot of people have showered me with love and support which I'm extremely grateful for. Since I truly don't think I could handle all of this on my own, I have also confided in a few of my close friends about what is happening. They have also advised me to talk to them anytime I need to simply let it all out. They have also advised me that, for now, my decision to not go and meet them is the right one to make since it is the best one I could make right now for me. No matter what else people are going through in life, I have to prioritize myself. Chris and my family have always put themselves first, hence I should likewise do the same. To be honest, I hardly believe I should be there for them emotionally either. They can each handle this on their own, they have one other. After the wedding was called off and I discovered I'd been betrayed, I was the one with absolutely no one from my immediate family at my side. Though he was the one who had been in the wrong, my own parents had turned against me and had chosen my brother over me. Out of the family, he ought to have gone missing first. Still, that's only past. I'm attempting to go on from that. Should I return to them once more, I will not be able to accomplish it successfully. I have thus blocked all of them once more and will keep to my choice of not interacting with them. I truly regret what happened to my brother, but I hope he recovers quickly as, no matter what he has done, I cannot be the person wishing anything negative to happen to anyone. I thus hope things work out for them, but I am out of here. Right now, I'm just paying close attention to my own mental health. I'm thinking of returning to treatment. The way I handled this and the comments from my parents got under my skin. All those old emotions are resurfacing once more, hence I truly believe I should consult a professional since I don't think I'm handling all of this as well as I thought I was. I therefore simply now am looking out for myself. Update 2. I thus learned from a few relatives that my brother's condition is really severe and that it is not exhibiting any improvement. He still resides in the hospital. It has been almost 2 weeks. Although I feel horrible for the family as their situation is extremely terrible, there is not much I could do. Apart from myself, everyone who knows my family has dropped by the hospital to see my brother at least once in the previous 2 weeks and pay their sympathies for the horrible disaster that has happened. I would have done that, but then I also discovered via my relatives that my parents have been disparaging me to anyone who has been visiting them and projecting me as a terrible man. They seem to be telling everyone they begged me to come see them and be there for the family. But I had objected and said things like this was retribution for screwing me over 5 years back and my brother deserved this. For the record's sake, I clearly said nothing of the kind. Since I'm usually a friendly person to everyone, some of them got in touch to ask whether this was true or not since it seemed like nothing I would say. When they questioned me about it, I clearly informed them that my parents were fabricating it to make it seem like I was a horrible person, probably to get a reaction out of me or maybe simply because that's the type of people my parents are. Not that I said these things. Especially after already having screwed up my life once, I was simply quite let down that people were saying such things about me and fabricating stories only to present me as the evil guy. I'm just happy that my relatives asked me about it since, had they simply decided to trust my parents, then I doubt anyone in the family would have been speaking to me at this stage either. I had not spoken to my parents for the past 5 years, but the rest of my family, my aunts, uncles, and naturally my cousins, had been there for me. I honestly didn't want to lose that. And I suppose my parents chose to try and screw that up for me as well since they couldn't abide it. Simply said, I find it incomprehensible that people despise me so strongly. I have literally not done anything to them. Although my parents have always had a soft spot for my brother right from our youth, my brother and I have never been very close. This seems needless and overbearing. Update 3. Hi. So I posted an update 2 days ago. Today my mother decided to get in touch once more. She had nowhere else to go except pay me a visit to speak with me as I had blocked them everywhere. She was already there, waiting for me to get back home from work. Since I was simply so tired from work already, I really didn't feel like chatting to her. I almost decided I would be getting back into the car, but she noticed me and I had to go talk to her. Since it would be quite difficult to get rid of her, I chose to talk to her in the front yard instead of admitting her into my house. This proved to be quite bad for me since finally she started screaming at me, drawing the attention of the neighbors as well. The exchange began quite naturally. She just struck up a casual conversation with me and I had to respond gently. Then I couldn't help myself, so I started asking her why she had been fabricating lies about me to fit me as the evil man. I informed her that although my family had treated me like this, I had never wished anything negative to happen to them. I honestly simply wanted to go on with my life, but they were making even that incredibly difficult for me. I had been suppressing these emotions for a very long time, hence when I saw her it simply spilled out and I couldn't control myself. Ultimately, I informed her that although they had never treated me the same way and I was rather let down by their actions, I found it quite difficult to consider them as family after all that had transpired. I stated that since I had just returned home from work and was truly not in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything too emotionally taxing, whatever she had come to discuss could be done later. She had been listening to me patiently up until that point, but she became rather agitated when I told her I wanted not to talk to her at the moment and said she was only here to apologize for the exact same things I had mentioned. She claimed that she and my father had not been thinking clearly. They had first been somewhat offended by my response since I had refused to stand up for my family and even paid visits to my brother while he was in the hospital. I wasn't not visiting since they then understood they hadn't exactly treated me well in the prior 5 years and that I was clearly still rather offended about that. She had come to try to settle things out between us since she thought the family should stick together right now for emotional stability. She changed her plan and decided she would yell at me instead when I informed her I wanted no conversation with her. She advised me to simply be happy that I still have a family since, following the way I had responded upon learning of my brother's injury, she had half of a mind to cut me off and ensure that the rest of my relatives likewise ceased communicating with me permanently. She clarified that she thought my reaction had not been sad enough when I found out about my brother's tragedy as I did not know what she meant. Not even did I know what she had expected of me. She claimed that when I told her about my brother's accident, she expected me to at least show some feeling, but during the phone call I had just sounded quite apathetic. Clearly, regardless of our personal relationships, some news like that was absolutely going to impact me and it has indeed. As I said before, I do not wish it onto anyone. This includes my family even with our close ties. I was therefore quite offended learning about his accident. Perhaps that had not shown up on the phone call since she could not see my face, but her arguments were simply wholly unfounded and irrational. She even said that my brother's absence for Karen and my nephew had shown how little I valued the family, as I had not been there for them. She was only fabricating once more to support their behavior. Since these things are utterly strange and pointless, I truly believe that my parents have started to lose their minds. She started screaming at me, thus I lost even more interest in talking to her and chose to hide inside my house. I thus unlocked the entrance to my house after some time and entered while she was still screaming at me. She followed me inside, but I closed the door in her face and advised her to leave since I was really offended and wanted no further interaction with her. She battled with me, but I told her I would call the police. That's when she finally departed, but not before berating me out and declaring I would shortly suffer consequences. I'm not even curious about learning what that implies. I have no idea what that entails. I simply want to unwind and go on living. Update 4. Hi there. Following the accident 26 days ago, my family at last received some positive news to deliver today to all. They obviously did not personally inform me about it. I learned about it from my cousins. The good news is that my brother is at last displaying some progress. That's a positive indication since he is reacting better and out of a coma is not. Though I'm not really regarded as part of the family anymore and have been thrown out long ago, the last month has been rather trying for everyone in the family, including myself, so I truly hope he can make it and that he only improves from here forward. My parents have truly proven to me that they are unhinged in the way they have been following my life throughout the past 26 days. They were simply venting their anger on me. Following my last conversation with my mother, which I discussed in my last update, I did not hear from her for a few days. Then though, my father called me up to scream at me instead. I cannot tell it was him as he used a different number from the one he typically uses. He started screaming at me practically right away. Caught my cheating wife at a secret hotel. My wife was surprised when I gave her divorce papers in the hotel lobby. Hello everyone, I hope each of you is doing great. I am writing on my phone, hence apologies for any mistakes. This is a rather long and disorganized tale. I have nowhere to negotiate this problem as I have run out of my rope. Little background. My SO is 40 and I am 43. Married for 16 years, we have 2 children, a 9-year-old boy and a 14-year-old daughter. At first, our marriage was somewhat turbulent, but we worked through those difficult years and came out much different. We married young, hence maturity wasn't completely there yet. Nevertheless, we knew we loved each other and could overcome any challenge standing between our marriage. Whether this was wishful thinking still remains a question. Still, I have been in engineering for 7 years while my wife has worked for 3 years as a manager in a very large advertising agency. Our careers pay nicely and have given our family a quite nice way of life. We were a rather close family. As parents, we always made sure our children could create wonderful memories. We always found time for our children no matter how busy we became. To be honest, I think I'm a decent husband and dad. When it came to my wife, I occasionally messed up. But I did everything for this woman, and it really shook me to my very core to learn she was having a long-term affair. Which leads me to the revelation. My wife was acting far away. Actually, the last 2 years preceding this one were the toughest. She just seemed to enjoy nothing I did. Yes, I know now. She would constantly tell me how her boss would handle this or that and continually contrasting me with her employer. Not able to grasp her mind. She can, however, ask her supervisor. Make her feel unique and avoid starting the initiative to take her on dates. Her supervisor does that for his wife though. Why was my immaturity so extreme? I would want to know how she wanted me to liven up our marriage. Her usual response was, "Don't ask, you need to already know and do it." So since I knew nothing, I investigated and bought books, anything. The response has to come from someone else. Everything I tried was greeted with either half-hearted thanks or bitter disappointment. In the years I have known her, my wife was never like this, therefore I felt that my failure to make her happy was something I really had to address. Little did I know, the entire time the repairing was being done by someone else. We were really close to her employer and his wife. They have children as well. The children adored one another. We brought them to our family trips to the park, barbecues, arcade gaming days. We have gone to theirs and they have visited our place many times. Not surprising that we grew close. When I told her boss about our marriage issues, he offered wise counsel. He seemed to be a great man. Still back to the discovery though. The demands of my wife to better myself where the marriage was concerned had emotionally worn me out. Her attitude really surprised me since, up until now, I had felt our marriage was wonderful. She was thus busy chuckling and laughing one night while messaging someone. Curious, I was also next to her in bed. She fiercely pushed away from me the instant I leaned to get a look. She asked me right away what I was doing, furious. She withdrew to the restroom when I told her I wanted to find out what the joke was and she said it was none of my business. That is the day I realized, deep down, that there was an affair of sorts underway. Though I lacked evidence as well. The next day I asked her straightforwardly, making a mistake. She was enraged and claimed no guilt. I wanted the truth badly even if I lacked access to her phone. She balked when I asked for her phone. She handed me the phone hesitantly only later in the evening. She deleted almost every text message she sent to particular individuals. I could tell since some of the exchanges sounded contradictory and others seemed absolutely ludicrous. I returned the phone to her, and we didn't talk about it until a month later when I got a friend to check the phone and retrieve erased texts. My wife had received another phone earlier and seldom used the one she handed me. Some books were found, and it was via bits and pieces that I at last found evidence of an affair underway. And you already figured it out, with her supervisor. I waited since I knew she would find some way to wiggle out of it if I addressed her then and there. But I was a wreck too. My only thought was on how it would impact the children. The scenario was terrible. I started crying in front of my friend. 3 days later I ordered How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair, still not ready to give up the marriage. If you are shaking your head, it is okay. I began reading, expecting that if I showed my wife, she would stop this crap. I wanted the marriage saved and my wife back off. She had told me they had an emergency at work and not to wait for her, so I had intended to chat to her on that Saturday to sort things out. Of course, I called the office on the day to verify the narrative she told me and got no response. Saturdays are not open. I tried her phone but there was no response. On Sunday, Around 2 in the morning, she returned home, showered right away and went to bed. When I questioned her about her late arrival, she sidestepped the inquiry by claiming she had already advised me not to wait for her. I was tired of this. I left her the book I purchased absent-minded. She did not care. I was hurting. She didn't care when she saw me in agony. To find out, I asked the wife of her boss whether she knew anything. I still don't regret doing it since I was so yearning for stability. Finding out startled her as much as it did me. She wanted to face her husband, but I advised her he would most likely lie and try to cover it like my wife did. We got together at her residence to go over what was happening, and I handed her the meager evidence we had. She needed further proof, hence we both set out to compile data on our respective sides and then compare them. Starting to spy more on my wife, she followed suit with her husband. She found clear evidence quite easily on her end. Her husband was so conceited that he omitted deleting the texts on his phone between him and my wife. The small notes I'd discovered earlier at last made sense, and we now knew 2 years had been the duration of the affair. I was enraged, just as the wife of the employer was. I wanted retribution on them as well as she did. Everywhere they slept, her house, my house, fancy hotels, business travels. Reading all that made one queasy. They even emailed each other pictures, but we decided to overlook them since we wanted not to damage ourselves with the pictures. Though not an affair ourselves, we sought retribution. We both resolved that they could have each other if they so desired. About the same time, we each gathered divorce paperwork. We were dead set on it. We acted our part. Our husbands were unaware of what we knew. Our ducks were back then in a row, once more. This time, working with the wife of the boss, we knew exactly where and how they would be received. We knew the motel they had reserved for their good weekend. I visited there together with the sheriff. While the sheriff arranged everything, I waited in the lobby. My wife was called to come down from her room. She dropped down wearing a bathrobe and, I worry, nothing else. She was terrified and asked me furiously what I was doing there. Though not too distant, it was rather a distance from our house. The sheriff wanted her name and details confirmed. She responded ambiguously in the affirmative and was served. Seeing the startled expression on her face was quite fulfilling, but I chose to leave knowing the job was done as I did not want to bring it under discussion. She held my arm, dragged me back and insisted on knowing what the meaning of this was not letting me. You had an affair, I told her, and I'm leaving you, simplified. She began shouting at me then grabbed my arm firmly. The sheriff had to intervene and order her to release me immediately. She told me she could explain, that I had the wrong notion, and that it was my fault. She started crying. I left fast to get home since I was getting enraged. When my wife told her boss, he fretted. According to what I was told, he hurried home only to find himself served. We gave them no time to straighten their heads. We blindsided them exactly as they did us. While hers might take some more time, my divorce will be finalized in a few months. On the divorces, both my wife and her supervisor have been battling us. Neither want to file for divorce. The reasons I have heard are that they never meant to leave their husbands, that it was only a purely sexual affair and nothing more, that people have worse indiscretions and still come out with a fantastic marriage, that they messed up and would like a chance to right things. What, I asked my wife, do you suppose the result of all this is? She said she is not that person anymore and said she was following the flow and behaved totally against nature. She is a moron, I told her. For not giving my wife another chance, others around me are labeling me horrible. Though they would want it if we stayed together, my children know what is going on, age appropriate, and they are backing me 100%. We still reside in the same house, hence my resolve is weakening along with the fact that my wife is reading the book I purchased and attending therapy. It's becoming more difficult to keep to my guns. She claims to be sorry and will perform all necessary actions. All I need to know is that she is sorry she got caught. She has labeled me as a sour, angry person unable to go past all the negativity. Later she apologizes for it, but I know that's how she feels. I still speak with the boss's wife, and my wife completely detests it. She believes the boss's wife is the reason I won't be giving us another chance or that I will be having a vengeance affair. Like she did with her boss, she has insisted on my starting no communication with the wife of the boss. She is nuts, I told her. We did nothing illegal, why should I now accept her points of view? See, I believe I've finished. I respect nothing about her. She is still not ready to give up and is actively interacting with me about her ideas and procedures concerning the affair. I find them as justifications, hence I ignore her. She asks me to accompany her for therapy. I was thinking, hell no, as I have seen in numerous instances where the therapist blames the victim. She wants me to read books about infidelity with her. Given that we are likely to divorce regardless, what good is this? She is close-minded. She would not be able to control me with sex, I informed her. She says she just wants to show me how much she loves me and it's not manipulation. Correcting her, I responded, love me now, you mean? People around me, including my mother, are annoyed with me as they believe that mistakes are inevitable and my wife understands from her errors that she really loves me. I assured others I would never be someone's backup plan. Treating her the way I do makes me terribly guilty. Though there is hate involved, I still love her. Am I treating her unduly cruelly? She is trying quite hard, but I have no interest. Should I go back over the divorce? People say I should slow down. I shall regret it. I am moving too quickly. Yes, that is accurate. I'm not sure what is actual from what is not. Edit. I appreciate all of you spending time to answer my predicament. After reading all of your comments, some of you addressed some really pertinent issues. I will talk with my wife right now. Though I will keep you informed, I believe divorce is the best path for my children and myself. Reading from here has been beneficial. Update for the narrative. Alright, I'm back once more. I'm trying a second time since I have been receiving emails requesting an update. Appreciate your concern, folks. I would want to clear certain things since I can see your curiosity. First of all, right now my wife and I find ourselves in a type of decent state. Not because we are reconciling. No, I am still divorcing her. Taken down by the automat, the previous update I uploaded thoroughly described our circumstances. The brief story is that my wife is still hankering after another opportunity and is acting accordingly to acquire it. I won't give it to her as her affair was far too long for me to recover. Should it have been a one-night stand, the narrative might have been different, but 2 years is simply a slap on the face. I love her still and am not a monster, hence I have attended a few therapy sessions with her. One session was really excellent and let me see that my wife really regrets it. She has been trying pretty darn hard, but she has not been flawless in how she managed the aftermath from her affair. Her anger at me for constantly contacting the boss's wife and her fear of a vengeance affair made the second session a catastrophe. We argued a lot later since I refused to do what she requested, which was no communication with the boss's wife, therefore it was the angriest I had ever gone through this whole situation. That was settled after I assured her there wouldn't be a vengeance affair. Though I know I owe her nothing, she is still my wife until our divorce, hence I still want to keep my word. I have been visiting a couple of more meetings with her merely to observe her improvement. This therapist is indeed an individual and marriage therapist. I'm not attending these meetings since, deep down I want to save our marriage. If only I could watch my wife's development personally and help if necessary. I'll gracefully step away following the divorce. Still leaving her husband is the wife of the boss. Her husband is still contesting her on the divorce. She is as strong as I am, and I will say we do have low days with each other. We are only cordial with each other. I still see no affair taking place. She is a strong, self-reliable woman who does not, expletive, anyone. Right now my children are good. They understand that we love them no less simply because we are divorcing. Although they encourage us not to divorce, they see why it's right for our age. My wife works somewhere instead of the advertising company now. She quit not too long after I visited her. She claims to have kept absolutely no contact with her previous supervisor. She applied that advice and sought assistance on saving the marriage on forums. After seeing my wife work her butt out to be a better person, I can see the appeal even though initially I didn't understand why people stayed with adulterers. She's not a monster. She's simply flawed and made terrible decisions from which she is learning improvement. She has extended to me everything under the sun to give another go. Not sure I have it in me either. I feel more at peace the closer a final divorce seems to be. She recently begged to have a chance following divorce, and we had a lengthy conversation about this. She has extended a postnup offer. Although I wasn't totally against it, it would be a somewhat long road for her to travel for me to even consider as an option. She seems really eager, but honestly I don't see how that would help any of us. Mostly driven by a momentary feeling of justice, I want this divorce. Without compromising myself to the level of an adultery, this is the only justice I can obtain. After I told more about my wife's affair, my mother and I made up. Today, she's rather angry with my wife after finding out the specifics. I'm not sure how I would negotiate one. Rant. Affair for revenge? Alright, I wanted not to write here until my divorce was finalized, but right now I'm just annoyed and really want to rant. Like many of you, my wife is terrified about a revenge affair. The straightforward explanation is that I still get in touch with and see the other woman I betrayed. Against the other betrayed partner, my wife feels somewhat insecure. Is that how it is spelled? Younger, a model, quite beautiful, and runs a profitable company as the other deceived partner. It makes my wife suspicious that I would yield to temptation and cheat on her in return. The nerve of her to deliver me the two wrongs don't make a right lecture still astounds me. She isn't wrong, of course, and I never intend to follow through. Still, her hypocrisy bothers me. Like yesterday, every time I visit the other betrayed husband, my wife becomes somewhat depressed or very clingy. She has thrown herself at me several times to make sure I do not cheat on her back, but I'm not sure how many. Her advances are turned down, and that further aggravates things. The deceived have to struggle along and try to pick up the pieces while cheaters are thus selfish, just thinking about themselves and their suffering. Besides, our children still see their children. Although I never go to the other betrayed partner without my children, my wife still believes I have it in me to be as merciless as she was and sees every chance to attack the lady. Laughable, expletive. OM is still residing in their vacation house and begs the other betrayed partner to bring him back. I am not going to lie, seeing him suffer the repercussions makes me very happy. Given my degree of leverage on him, he has not tried threatening me. He has to cope with my ongoing communication with his wife. He makes sure I'm not around when he visits since he is allowed to see his kids whenever he wants but does not want to see me. To be honest, I pity the man. My wife has been really contrite lately. She has lavished me with love, which I just push aside. I'm not in a good frame of mind. Today is our therapy session. I feel like releasing all the suffering and hurt I have gone through thanks to her. My anger has become intolerable. Update. Well, here I am checking in. Not especially fresh to report to you folks. Only a few things have evolved though. Reviewing my conversations and postings helped me to see how wonderful this location is for helping people just like us. To help me to see my circumstances better, I have been reading a lot of material about infidelity. Still, during a recent therapy appointment with my wife, she asked that I give her a little more time to win me back. She had reason after reason why it would be a good idea for me to at least try and see if I could assist in restoring our marriage, not quite reconciliation yet. I kept bringing up the fact that her primary motivation was the fallout from her affair. She wouldn't be trying if she still saw OM. For months she emotionally mistreated me. I'm not the kind of person to be walked all over, even by the woman I loved. She owned all of her mistakes and once more apologized. She has promised me so much of making it up to me. She believes it is possible and wants our marriage to be stronger than it has ever been. Having plenty to spare, I asked her whether she would be ready to tolerate my wrath. She was like, absolutely. And she would like me to dump on her anytime I feel like it to help me process the grief. Usually, I got a million excuses when I questioned her why she had an affair. She was honest this time, telling me there was no justification for what she did and that she would spend every day for the rest of her life demonstrating to me by her actions that she was really regretful and would never hurt me that way again. She genuinely dumped emotions onto me, and it helped me to realize that she truly was rather insecure about herself and envious of the other betrayed partner. Her ego shot skyward from the affair. She loved feeling beautiful and wanted. She would never last and admitted the encounter was most certainly a fantasy. She considered the ramifications from time to time but scarcely gave them any thought overall. She regrets having the affair and claims she will live with this guilt the rest of her life. She most likely will never forgive herself. She informed me she could never hold a candle to the other betrayed spouse, and the reason she was so sure I would cheat again was because the other betrayed spouse is not only gorgeous but also a lady with integrity. Not once has the other betrayed partner ever threatened her or behaved meanly toward her. It was all my wife's fears, and maybe the fact I was furious with her for turning on me. It gets fascinating here. The therapist asked me what it would take for me to give my wife's offer some thought. Not one thought came to me. Since what I presently have is a fake of a marriage and I never signed up for it, I was honest and told her, a time machine. She informed me that every marriage deals with issues ranging from death to adultery. How those issues are handled reveals the resilience of a marriage. I told the therapist to concentrate on my wife instead of us as I really couldn't believe where this talk was leading. The therapist advised me that my incapacity to pay attention to logical arguments could be a communication-wise issue. I agreed not to disagree. During the journey home, my wife and I had a long conversation. She asked whether her affair had made me feel emasculated. Given she had never asked me that prior, the question really caught me off guard. Sure, I said. She startled me by wondering if sleeping with another woman would make me feel better. I reminded her once more that I am not, nor will I ever be, a vengeful lover. She clarified that she was referring to a trial separation whereby I would go get my mojo returned. She will stay true and wait till I'm good and ready to return to the marriage. Before, I felt she was desperate, but her idea seemed insane. I questioned her how that would help the marriage in any form so that both partners can be having affairs. She informed me it would not be an affair as we would be separated under conditions allowing my freedom to see other people. She answered that we were divorcing anyhow, so if this doesn't help us, at least I could see what the outside world has to offer. I told her that is a great risk on her behalf. She appeared completely out of character to suggest it, hence I clearly rejected the proposal. For the past few weeks, my wife has been remarkably quiet and patient. She is unlike the wild, insecure one I used to know. Naturally, I should not trust her for my personal benefit. It is quite challenging though. She has been really giving in the divorce, even if she doesn't want it. Though not my case, I have read so many stories of divorces turning acrimonious. Being in this state is rather surreal. It is challenging to negotiate. Edit. Let me also make clear, I am still completely going with the divorce. Hearing people's impressions of this interests me. Edit. Back once again. Hello to each of you. I have another update on this sorry condition of my life. I want to thank the people who keep contacting me in support before I get into that. My wife and I have thus decided to be courteous now and celebrate the holidays as a family. Though my wife is still hoping otherwise, this will be the final holiday ever observed. This was for the benefit of our children. I have loving children. Our divorce will be official midway through February. For those of you who are interested, we have shared everything half and half, although she has been quite giving on her side. She might become nasty later, but so far she has been good and tells me it's because I have been a terrific husband and parent. She feels I should get more than a fair divorce considering all she has done. Still don't know whether it's a technique. Though I do gain somewhat more thanks to her, that is not to imply she will lose a lot out of the divorce. I have chosen to cease attending sessions with her. It was confusing her and offering false hope. She has said that she has a strong desire to be close to me all the time and that her affair made me feel emasculated and unwanted. She has been attempting to have sex with me rather often, and I mean quite often. To be honest, my wife seldom started sex before all of this, so I felt a little offended that she was doing it now. I came to value her seeing this as a hang-up of mine and her desire to fix it over time. Though I have turned her down, she continues fiercely claiming that this has nothing to do with reconciliation and that she only wants me to feel good and desired. For now, I have shut off communication with the other betrayed partner since things were becoming somewhat too personal for my taste. I suppose you were not far off when the person mentioned I was having a vengeance affair. It wasn't even anything I knew till the other betrayed partner admitted she wanted to try and see where our relationship would develop. She said she would wait to start anything until my divorce was official. We have agreed to take a vacation from each other till everything is settled as I was somewhat perplexed and had no explanation for her. The second betrayed partner is a beautiful woman, but I'm not sure whether I could make her feelings back off. I have very little idea how to manage that. Someone suggested that her future reconciliation with her husband is being hampered by being near the other betrayed partner. I guarantee you that nothing I do relates to her choosing to leave OM. She is done with him and that is all. When we are together, we do not discuss our spouses negatively. OM personally visited me lately to atone for all that happened. He was usually an arrogant man, hence this event really helped him to grow humble. His apologies did not sit with me. Though I wouldn't say expletive about what he is going through, call me petty. Is it alright for me to have sex with my wife even if we are not getting along? I do admit I miss having sex. I sorely miss the closeness and intimacy of it all. New lingerie, sexting, touching, letters, etc. My wife is eager and has been trying everything possible to start it, and sometimes I find it difficult to resist. Honestly, I just didn't care to know exactly where they had sex, so she even threw away, destroyed, and replaced everything that had to do with OM at my house without my asking her to. Switching off these emotions is difficult for me. Is this a catch-up? Am I the one being played? I wanted her here as it's less of a hassle until the divorce is finalized. Before someone says kick her out of the house, I've already tried that. Rant. At last I understand it. Though she was nothing but worthless, I felt I squandered all these years on a woman. Nevertheless, she produced wonderful memories and children. As a man, these things I will never forget and value greatly. I am going to do better than her though, and at last I realize I am better than her. People have come flooding in offering me guidance on how to handle this. I realize at last that I am deserving of better than her. She twisted me over, put me down, and made me feel less than when another man paid her any attention. She actually gave another man her all. It still shocks me that I'm at last realizing I am over her. She only now does all it takes to maintain me. She is now focusing her effort on us. She used to not care, however now she wants me to be happy. She now desires to be this daring sex partner for me. Though it was never amazing, I enjoyed our sex. I can now clearly see what I have missed. Her writings with OM let me know only the surface of the graphic nature of their trysts. Now, despite her past relative slowness, she wants to show me just how much she loves me. The lethargic sex tells volumes to me. While earlier it was all about giving her attention and providing for her at the same time, now she gives me space and is pleased and supportive of all I do. She now respects my bounds and surpasses them to add more. She now views me as the king I wanted her to see, but no. First I had to smother her off her pedestal first. She is the perfect woman right now, yet it seems transitory to me. She now tells me everything exactly, very open. She is quite honest as well, even if it may make her embarrassed or offended. Before, I don't believe I have ever seen any woman looking constantly ashamed on her face. She wishes this affair never had a place. She kicks herself quite a bit every day. When I am simply not responsive to anything she does, I can see the desperation on her face. She tries to cover it, but she seems so unhappy. Though occasionally I detest myself, to me it's necessary. Why cannot I consider this as a good thing? Why cannot I criticize her now for her actions? They exhibit regret, right? Many have LTAs and come out even more powerful than before. Why am I making decisions based more on feeling than on a point of mature objectification? While I enter another dubious relationship, someone else will end up receiving the better and upgraded version of her. When everything seems to lead to something decent for the future, why not strive for this? These are the lines I have been handed. My response is that I will not tolerate disrespect. Perhaps I was eager in the early phases of research, but I woke up from that fast. This is to respond to those who have routinely asked about my position and messaged me. This Christmas I will be spending it with my whole family and then moving away from my wife. To retain my wife's grip over me and go totally from the concept of her, I resolved to cease listening to the garbage I produced in my thoughts. Neither will I be giving us another shot nor dating her. We are done for good. My wife is not a villain, and that is the truth. She should be happy too, but it will never be with me. She has personally shown me that. When I absolutely hit rock bottom, I phoned the other betrayed partner today and promised her supper after the holidays for her support. She mentioned she would really like it. Although I know this isn't common, we truly helped each other all through this and I owe her thanks. I really didn't know before people started discussing how much I intended this with OBS. For the past few years, my feelings have been so twisted that the whole idea of another lady never crossed my head. And dinner is it, nothing else unless both of us really want it. But the closer the divorce approaches, the more I see I really have choices. One such alternative has been right there. Regarding OM, I have nothing to say about the man. Not a flying expletive. I will inform any woman as I do not believe I will marry once more. Though my divorce has not been particularly difficult, I am nonetheless losing a lot of money. Today, the whole concept of marriage seems to be a hoax. I apologize for just now being so cynical. Though I'm jaded, I want this essay not to insult anyone. I realized how little I got back after giving this lady my best years. Happy holidays, you won't be seeing me for some time. Update, formally divorced. It has been long since I expected. I did say earlier that I will be returning here for the final update. That ends. Formally, my ex and I have split ways permanently. It happened around 3 weeks ago. For the better part of several days following the event I mourned as though I had lost a loved one. That my marriage failed so spectacularly really affected me rather strongly. Ever since I initially found out about the affair, I never shed tears that strong. I also railed a lot, most likely one of my lowest points. Everything has been set up for my ex, partly on my behalf for the children. She left the house, I am attempting to buy her out of her portion of it. She currently resides in an apartment, a somewhat large downsize for her, and it basically makes her depressed. She still visits the therapist and remains committed to reading and researching infidelity. Not exactly sure why. With little physical touch, we have had long chats both before and following the divorce. She is the mother of my children, hence even if I know I shouldn't be entertaining her right now, we should be decent co-parents. Thanks in great part to this group and others, I am nothing except logical about the matter. Of course, it's the same song. She wants to reconcile, and I believe it would be too dangerous for me to put myself in the same circumstances once more. I regret not feeling the right mood to present her the gift. I went to supper with the other betrayed partner this past weekend solely for companionship and conversation. We covered a lot of ground. Things grew flirtatious between us, and I have to say I was somewhat hesitant to welcome the fast-shifting mood. I suppose I should say that the evening concluded with quite fervent intensity. I'm sorry for the TMI. Most likely, the most amazing sex I have ever experienced. OBS is quite much a giver, spades above my ex. Although I had no intention of it going that far, the other betrayed partner was eager and I too was. Learned quite a few more LOL tricks in the sack. First time I had someone that was eager to satisfy me rather than the other way around. She divorced her ex, thus I guess I shouldn't call her the other betrayed spouse anymore, but for privacy's sake I will just use that. To be honest, I do not see us advancing our relationship. That evening, I suppose the hormones and booze got the best of us. Though I'm not sure she would want to. I believe she also helps me to arrange myself emotionally. Still, I feel really terrific. Although this may not be what people want to hear, the sex I had with the other betrayed partner greatly helped with my remaining self-esteem problems. Desired, living, and at last I knew what I was missing. I will never accept artificial sex once more. Knowing that I did not lose my morals and was not cheating made me more fulfilled. All things considered, I'm really pleased with how I handled all this mess. Though not flawless, I did the best I could. Though I did lose a lot of money in this process, I am most likely coming out really lucky compared to many BHS. But it was because I was ready to listen to those with knowledge rather than mindlessly wishing for the best. I will thus be eternally appreciative of you people. You and everyone who listened to me helped me to avoid even further losing my value. Summary. Respect you. Never, never tolerate disrespect from anyone else, not even from individuals closest to you. Everybody is entitled to a happy, contented relationship. Never accept your partner's leftovers. Every committed partnership should feature a satisfying and healthy sexual life. Do not accept it if your partner is not giving you their all but did so in an affair or before with someone else. Just state your discontent. I am not encouraging rape or sexual abuse. If your spouse is not ready to meet your desires, do not settle for dull sex unless both of you agree. One can walk away from that without trouble. Share, interact, share. I cannot underline how very vital that is. Should you ever be betrayed, only you can really recover? I needed a long time to grasp this. Though that's all I can currently think of, there are many more. I'll be here to respond to your comments, but I'm done blogging here permanently and moving on with my life in around a few hours from now. Have a nice one, everyone. Right now, things are good. Update. Hey folks, people wanting to find out how my issue is going have been flooding me with emails. I still get triggered here and there, hence I have been deliberately avoiding everything involving adultery. Having this in mind, I am still working through the trauma. I try not to dwell too much on it, hence I've been absent from this site and others in order to move on. But given so many people are worried about me, I will reassure you and provide an update. I'm good, no mishaps, no poof, I'm off the face of the earth. I'm still in IC and my girlfriend is the other betrayed partner. With regard to child custody and money, she resolved her matter with OM. She should have handled that sensibly instead of being vindictive and dragging him to the cleaners. The children do have some conflict over all this, and we are working as well as we can to handle it. We have to start therapy for them to ensure they appropriately adjust and realize that their relationship with the other betrayed partner has minimal influence on them. Still, we do take them into account when it comes to the way this is handled. Not everyone is on board, hence this is really difficult. OM, my ex and my daughter do not enjoy being around each other. I'm not joking here. There's conflict when those two are near one another. I really believe both of them blame the other for how things turned out. My ex still wants a second chance and is most likely offended that the other betrayed partner stands in the path of me seeing things clearly and not tossing away what we have eternally. This woman is so misled, her antics really concern me. She tried something at a friend's 4th of July celebration. I closed it, although I suppose it was not sufficiently strong. Though you guys were right, she wants to come crawling back in a bad way. I did not believe the individuals claiming she would be pining for me. The other betrayed partner is letting me handle that. But she's also becoming sick of my ex too. Did I mention my ex's passionate loathing of the other betrayed partner? Ever since I left her for someone else, my ex has been a train wreck. But I truly thought she was improving herself. I treated her better than I treated anyone else in my life, hence she treated me like garbage and I still don't get it. But the instant I respond F you, she is backflipping to grab my interest. I'm not sure whether I ought to be offended over this. There you have it. Now everyone can relax. Regarding my daughter, I get anxious. Hello everyone. I am new to this sub but not new to Reddit. Actually, I have been searching for suitable references to handle my current circumstances. Though I'll outline it below for you all, feel free to review my history to obtain a better backdrop. Ex-wife of mine had an affair. It ran for over 2 years. My ex-wife compared me to our OM a lot and was really nasty to me during this period. Our sex life was worse than it had been before, and at first I blamed all of my failings. I didn't have a straightforward strategy to leave her once I found the affair, but it gradually came to pass. One weekend she departed to hang out with OM and lied to me about it. I contacted the other betrayed partner and we worked together to divorce each of our respective wives. The affair was revealed to our age-appropriate children during this process under a mommy broke a promise to daddy kind of conversation. Not specifics, only that we were heading our different directions but yet loved them very much. Though of course they didn't want the divorce to occur, which is also quite reasonable, they took it as well as anyone would want. Although my ex-wife has been relentlessly advocating for reconciliation, I wasn't there to provide her another chance. Understanding it wasn't about me, I forgave her and wanted to be done with the relationship. The divorce grew more expensive the closer it approached completion, although the financial harm was not too severe. I also have to say that the other betrayed partner and I began a gradual relationship immediately following the divorce. It was first like FWB, but these days it's far more serious. Had it not been for our mutual support during the aftermath of the affair, I most certainly would still be with my cheating ex, that or murdered myself, half joking. Still, I constantly chat to my children to find out how they are handling this. I strive to make sure our talks are honest. If they object to my relationship with the other betrayed partner, they can let me know so. I wouldn't be insulted since I want to avoid putting them in a position that would cause problems down the road. 10-year-old son likes OBS. Given her age, 15, my daughter would rather have a little more time adjusting to the new dynamic. She says she doesn't want to meddle with my connection with the other betrayed partner and she wants to see me happy. I told her I wanted her to be happy too, even if it is not her place. She can say so, and I wouldn't mind, if she prefers the other betrayed partner. She claims she just needs some time and is good with the other betrayed partner. About good partnerships, we have had several conversations with them. My daughter and I have had a lot of conversations regarding her concerns and worries. She seems generally quite helpful to me thus far. The other betrayed partner, and my son, daughter and her 2 daughters are very subtle in our relationship so as not to overwhelm all the other engaged children. Everyone, even OM, is in therapy. But that is a different matter entirely. This is clearly an unusual circumstance, as you can observe, which brings me back to my kid. The affair and choices taken have clearly affected her relationship with her mother. She tells me straightforwardly that she hates her as none of this would have happened without her. She is quite defiant with her mother. She pushes off her mother's attempts at affection, sulks when it is her turn to take her, and even curses at her once, which results in me stepping in and instructing her to be respectful, which she followed in that incident. The two had argued, and it worries me greatly that my daughter is suffering in such a severe degree. Though there is only so much she can do on her own, my ex-wife is attempting to cope as best as she can. Since I chose to divorce, she wants my help in restoring a relationship with her kid. She was the one who cheated. I could toss her right back off. I am above that, yet it calls into question how I handled this. Concerns I have. My daughter respects nothing about her mother. My daughter doesn't know her mother mistreated her. She wants things to be back as they were. Although my daughter is in treatment, I'm not sure how much it is benefiting her. She seems overburdened since she believes she has no voice or control over the circumstances. She has managed my relationship with the other betrayed partner really effectively, but I worry she is suppressing her feelings. Divorce of their mother seems like I might have damaged their lives. Though I'm not returning to that poisonous person either. I really value any advice. Update: I know you folks are worried about me. Hey everybody, sure, I saw your chat requests and emails. I'm sorry for not getting back. I'm not active here anymore, but I am very much aware that some have been attempting to follow up on my position and this update will help to allay your concerns. Not a happy ever after, be advised. First let's start with the large elephant in the room. How are the other deceived spouses and I doing? Actually, amazing. Years ago, I would have gone after a woman like her if I realized she existed earlier. LOL. All joking aside, other from her I have never had a closer bond with any lady. I had no idea what a good relationship looked like as my ex-wife put me through the grind so often. Though I still have self-doubts, the other betrayed partner is a great friend and has supported me through this. I really love this gal quite a bit. I feel the same way about her and she has repeatedly shown me, time and time again, that I mean a great deal to her. Nothing more than a girlfriend though. I have questions about the entire concept of marriage. We still conduct things behind closed doors and minimize involving the children in the full relationship process. Indeed though, the children are aware of our courting. Regarding the children, their start was really difficult. Who am I kidding? But right now they are getting along really nicely. I believe it largely relates to our close involvement in their life and ensuring they had someone to talk to when they encountered difficulties. Many therapies as well. Love the other betrayed spouse to bits, my daughter and son do. She interacts with children quite naturally. Her kids enjoy me much more than they did about 2 years ago. To really surprise me, her youngest began telling others that I'm her stepdad at events and gatherings I took her to. She said she loved me a lot and I made her mom happy, so she's happy I'm her stepdad. I was scared she felt forced to see me that way. You have no idea how emotional I became upon learning that. It felt like a ton of bricks from nowhere, but I did present a brave front. Though they presented a unified front to mercilessly taunt my son, the only boy and youngest of the bunch, I enjoy seeing my kids contentedly playing with OBS. Indeed, I'm not sure whether I should smile or grimace at that one. How about my unfaithful former partner? We get along rather well. She has been working very hard on her own to mend her relationship with her daughter. I was pleased when my daughter informed me she could find it in her heart to forgive her mother for what she did. Over these years, they have gone through a lot and have grown really nicely together. Still, I doubt my ex-wife has completely embraced our couple's way of life. She still seems to be seeking for or implying a second try. She still goes to individual therapy while working out at the gym. She seems far healthier overall now, but I don't really give a damn. I've reconciled with the past. Her issue stems from not following suit. Now, she talks more with the other betrayed partner. This is reciprocated, but the other betrayed partner routinely sees her with mistrust, as she should, given all that has happened. Is a cause gone lost. I had no idea what a disaster the man would be, all that money and no brains would create. Currently he has a girlfriend, but his children hate her and are rather honest about it. I needed some time to realize how self-absorbing the man was. To be honest, I also dislike his girlfriend. She strikes me as being quite cruel toward the girls, materialistic and selfish. In other words, we are performing better than just good. I had my questions about whether this was the correct route, but given the hard work of the people engaged, it is working out quite brilliantly. Not a happily ever after, just right now. Well, you have it right. Now everyone may relax easily. Nightmare neighbors scheme to steal our home ends, in $200K karma. You won't believe what happened next. Before we begin, let's introduce the key characters. The entitled neighbor will be referred to as N in the future, and the entitled neighbor's spoiled kid will be referred to as S, for entitled son. The former owner of our house, known as P.O., will also appear in this story, albeit in a minor role. Also, keep in mind that it's been over 15 years since we acquired the house. So unless otherwise specified, you can infer that most events occurred over a somewhat long period of time. Let's get started. In order to appropriately build up to the climax and establish the stage for the events that occurred, I must first provide some history. Most of this occurred before we purchased and moved into this home. Ann owned a huge plot of land down the road from a popular recreational lake in our community. I say down the road, but it's quite a distance away. Even though Ann lives on the only road that connects many lakefront estates and resorts, as well as the most popular boat dock on this side of the lake, the properties here aren't so expensive that ordinary people can't buy them. However, there are some incredibly valuable properties down the road, and very wealthy people pass by all the time. This will become relevant later in the plot. Karen, who was fairly affluent and had a considerable amount of property, decided to divide it into 4 nearly equal pieces when her children reached adulthood. One she handed to her daughter, who is surprisingly respectable given the rest of her family. Then she passed another part to S. She built residences for them on both properties, essentially following her children's requirements. Then on the 4th piece of property, which did not include her own house, she built a little convenience store. This will also be useful later on. I'm not sure why, perhaps to avoid future disagreements, but she ended up giving her children the deeds to their various houses and properties. You probably know where this is headed. While the respectable daughter was pretty respectable, S, or should I say irresponsible son, was a party animal. Everyone in the area at the time despised him. He would host loud, rude late-night parties practically every night, keeping everyone awake. Because he was called on so frequently, the police must have had someone stationed nearby. It undoubtedly did not help his entitlement that Mommy paid all of his bills for him. She maintained everything in her name, including water, electricity and rubbish. They all went to her mailbox, well, except one. Because the property was in his name, so were the property taxes, which he never paid to Ann and instead ignored. I suppose Ann either didn't think about it or expected he would pay for it himself. In any case, It was not surprising when the police arrived at his residence, but it was when he did not return and the house was auctioned off. At this stage, the house was in disarray. There were holes in the drywall, and the living room floor had a large hole that led down into the garage basement. The kitchen floor and subfloor had to be completely redone, and nearly all of the walls were covered in muck. His recklessness and partying habits essentially rendered the residence unlivable, according to the banks. As a result, the only people who could afford it were those willing to pay for it themselves. Enter Po was a house flipper. Not one of those large affluent ones you see on TV, but rather a hobbyist. He retired and flipped properties to stay engaged and active. Po would acquire a house like this at an auction for a low price, fix it up, and then resell it. While he worked on it, he would live off the proceeds from the prior property. Typically, by the time he completed mending one and purchasing the next, his profit had almost run out. Any remaining monies would go into an emergency savings fund, which he described as nothing exceptional. Anyway, we were looking for a new apartment, but we couldn't afford anything too pricey. We spotted this place for sale on a website and thought it was great. It was the perfect size, in the ideal area, and even down the road from the lake, where we enjoy fishing and boating. So, everything appeared to be ideal in practically every regard. We were a little concerned about the pricing, which had not yet been mentioned on the internet, but it wouldn't hurt to look into it. We drove by to look at it and discovered Po working on it. We came in to say hello and inquired about the price. He indicated that he intended to fix it up and sell it, and that his realtor had recently placed it to the website's database to make the process quicker and more efficient when he was ready to sell. Anyway, we sat down and had a lovely conversation with him. Just being cordial, and he enjoyed the company. We stated that we would be happy to buy it from him for a reasonable price, given its current state and the effort he had previously put into it. He had it approximately halfway built. We mentioned that we wanted to finish it and make it our lifelong home. He declined, claiming that he had previously received several offers for it and did not feel comfortable selling it to us before it was finished. He suggested we could buy it at full price when he was finished. So we politely thanked him and left our phone number, asking him to call us if he changed his mind, which he assured he would. Less than 2 weeks later, we received an unexpected call from him. He claimed that his sister had fallen ill in another state and that he wanted to go see her. He would not have the time or patience to complete the house. He said that the house was not up to code, but if we could find a means to acquire it, he would gladly sell it to us for a fair price. We eagerly agreed and began searching for banks. We had a few connections through a realtor acquaintance, who actually helped us find a bank prepared to lend us the money to buy the house, subject to a few restrictions. Essentially, we would have 2 weeks to get the house up to code. Otherwise, they may default on the loan and auction it off. After describing the problem to Po, he pledged to help as much as possible. He couldn't do any work on the house because he was in such a hurry, but he did explain exactly what we needed to do to get it up to code and fulfill the very minimal criteria. He told us how much time, effort, and money it would require. He even promised to aid us in another way. We took out a loan for twice the amount he asked for the house, and he returned the other half. We utilized that money to restore the house. After all of his hard work, the house was so close to being code compliant that we could have done it ourselves. But, just in case, we called in several pals and finished it in half the time. After getting everything up to code, there was still a lot of work to be done. So we spent several months rebuilding flooring and subflooring, rewiring cables, mending cracks in the walls, and replacing old, unsightly, actually rotting wallpaper that was affixed directly to the wall. You get the idea. We put a lot of work into the place. It was then at last time to enter our ideal house. Although it still had certain problems that we would address later on, it was at last time to move in. Not even done moving in when Anne visited to introduce herself. Over and over, Po had cautioned us about Anne and her entitled attitude as we were working things out in the extremely little time we had. Anne was first rather friendly, and we had no idea why Po cautioned us about her so often. Then it transpired. She gently and compassionately told us that our house really belonged to her and that we had 30 days to go as we were finishing our call. She claimed she felt awful for us since we were duped so severely, but Po had no right to sell her house to us at all. You might picture our fear when she told us all of this, as we had heard terrible tales about individuals being duped like that previously. That we had invested all of this time, money, and effort into this appalled us. Dream mansion, and now we were about to lose it just like that as we fell for some guy's fraud. We stated we will speak with Po and the bank to have it all worked out and thanked her for clarifying things for us and for her friendliness. We thus followed that. The bank confirmed Po was the real deed owner when we spoke with them. We spoke with the realtor, who likewise attested to the same thing. Poe told us they had harassed him continuously over the house and that they had accused him of stealing the house following his purchase at auction. Every person we spoke with related exactly the same story. We even went up to the courthouse to verify our name was on the deed. We learned the Ann tale from various neighbors during this procedure. Not long after this, Ann asked us when she could expect us to be moved out. We said that legally we owned the property, thus it would never be possible. Ann lost the property. We had no bearing on this. We said we knew it was most likely quite difficult to lose her family property like that due to her son's carelessness, but that was not our fault. We were merely giving her a property we had purchased with our own hard-earned money and had worked so hard to restore. Ann then started a protracted sob narrative about how this property had been in her family for generations, how she couldn't bear to lose it, and how Poe had pilfered it from her while she was caught up in the confusion of her child being detained. She realized we understood this. Given that we purchased the house from Poe for roughly $50,000 and considering that he was still making a meager profit on that even after all of the labor and materials he had invested in it before selling it to us, we inquired why they did not bid for the house and buy it back after he lost it. They could have had it back and easily paid next to nothing at auction. Ann said they refused to pay for something properly theirs and thought the house and belongings were being taken from them. We once more apologized, but we stressed that with all the time, money, and extra supplies we had spent simply to make her happy, there was no way we could afford to lose the property. We were sympathetic to her circumstances though, and we offered her the property for a very fair price, $100,000, which, given its location and state of repair, is still more than half of its overall market value. We believed it was a fairly reasonable price after purchasing it from Poe for $50,000 and adding another $30,000 for materials plus several months of hard labor to repair it. Though we said nothing, if she wanted to negotiate with us, we would even be ready to drop to $90,000. She instantly counteroffered with $40,000, stating she shouldn't have to pay anything at all for something rightly hers. She stated that she knew how much work we put into it and that we had to buy a lot of supplies to restore it, so she would be gracious and throw in an extra $10,000 for all the house we worked on. That was way too low. She became enraged when we informed her that $50,000 was what we paid Poe for the house. She labeled us liars and thieves, claiming the house was a total mess and that it was hardly worth that much. Not only had she turned to name-calling at this time, but she also called our dream house a dump after all the effort, sweat, and tears, not to mention money, that we spent into it. We were done with her lies, so kindly requested her to leave our house, stating that she was no longer welcome here and that we would never sell our house to her, even if she gave double the market value. Clearly agitated by this, she hurled all kinds of slurs at us as we were leaving the door. Later on, we discovered that she was disseminating all kinds of falsehoods about us around the neighborhood, claiming that we had taken her house and among other dumb behavior. We first dismissed it since we assumed nobody would really believe it. Then a man drew into our driveway carrying a gun, threatening to force us out. Though we had never personally met him, we had heard of him. Presumably viewing himself as the neighborhood's peacekeeper, he challenged anyone who generated such disturbances. Saying he was a decent, reasonable man, most of the residents in our area really liked him. Being a relatively rural area with lots of not-so-law-abiding residents, most locals valued his presence. Actually, he did far more than the police do most of the time and worked hard to maintain the peace in the area. Just a note, there are two main divisions to our neighborhood. Mostly senior people occupy one portion. It's quite pleasant and quiet, and everyone gets along there. The other is bursting with the less law-abiding folks farther into the bush and away from curious cameras. Separated by roughly a mile or so of farmland and woodland, we dwell on the brink of the quiet section. We then decided to try out that theory after learning about him before and presuming from descriptions that this was the same man. We welcomed him in for a beverage and conversation since we didn't know what was going on. We let him bring his gun, but we advised him that we would be carrying our own as well. If that means anything, almost everyone in my town owns a gun. There are more gun stores than dollar stores, hence we were not really concerned about his carrying a pistol. In our town, that isn't really meaningful. Simply said, hey, I'm capable of defending myself if this gets out of hand. Now, if someone pointed it at you, which he didn't, that would tell another tale. Returning to the main narrative, he said he thought it was something like that and apologized for the misinterpretation following a few hours of talking and situational explanation. Promising not to happen again, he said he turned off a switch after becoming enthralled in the reports. He also praised us for purchasing the house, saying that everyone was considerably happier when Ann moved out. He didn't have to hear people grumbling about loud music and intoxicated high kids staggered along the middle of the road in the middle of the night almost getting run over. Afterward, we all laughed good-hearted about it. He departed without saying another thing. Time now for the reason Mr. Peacekeeper felt the rumor so readily might be used. Though it's a bit of a side narrative, this is also a significant turning point since Anne's things started to fall downhill. Let us now get on to it. The events of this side story do cross a small bit with those of the next section of the plot. I then indicated Anne divided up a part of her land to open a convenience store. Well, this shop was quite well liked in the area, and being exactly in the middle, it was in a prime location. Their prices were unpopular. They really overpriced everything by quite a little, and their customer service was likewise essentially restricted to a thank you for your purchase as you left the door. That was good, I suppose, as occasionally they would offer a refund should you discover mold on the food you purchased from them. Still, they were rather well liked as they were the only convenience shop in miles. For most folks, they were simply a skip and a hop away if you had to buy groceries and did not have to drive all the way to town. Heck, we even put aside our differences and visited there quite a bit. After all, they were virtually next door. Apart from that though, their modest store's popularity helped them to establish a quite good reputation in our neighborhood. Everybody wanted to keep their handy small store, thus they would dare anyone to attempt and remove it from them. I guess I could sort of see the emotion there. And that's back when everyone felt Anne and her family were decent folks. People therefore listened when Anne started disseminating rumors. Everyone knew that was ludicrous, hence the stories of us pilfering a whole house from her merely flew over. Still, they mostly believe she is trustworthy. People did believe the other stories though, and trust me, there were plenty. But most of them were little, insignificant items of concern for none. Let me explain that even supposing all the allegations about us were accurate, there was far more that could be said about some other people in our neighborhood, hence nobody ever gave them any thought. Anne clearly disagreed with us, hence nobody wanted to be on her negative side in case she banned us from her store. They did avoid us. They all simply turned away from us and let us run wild. Anne let her son return in after a few years when he was at last released from jail and had nowhere else to live. She rented him an apartment above her convenience store since she disliked having him live with her and totally banned any wild parties on her land ever again. Though, all he had to do was operate the business for them when they were busy with other things, which wasn't not quite often, he did not really have to pay rent. Still, Anne's son did not pick up his lesson even with all of this. He would clearly pocket the extra money and routinely double-charge products while running the register. We went back in for a refund after repeated discoveries of this. They usually use the broken register as their justification. After observing a trend, we told Anne that her son most likely pocketed the money and was double billing people for products. Anne was fairly entitled, but she did not go so far as to engage in clearly unlawful activity. We loved her small business and wanted nothing to happen to it. She told us, instead of appreciating us for bringing this to her notice, that we were seeing things and gently advised us to screw off. We very respectfully followed her demand. We also forwarded the material to some of our neighborhood buddies. Thanks to Anne, it had taken years to really reach the point where some of them would even glance at us, let alone converse with us. At last though, we had befriended one another. Every year, Christmas goodies for your neighbors help to cheer someone's day. In any case, they thanked us even though they informed us they didn't really believe it. Still, the news soon permeated the area. Then very fast, arrived Mr. Peacekeeper. He stopped in our driveway once more, but this time he was far friendlier. Knowing most of the stories about us were false, he generally disregarded them. Since then, we have really spoken with him several times, mostly on more pleasant terms, not on any major issues. Every now and then he popped by for a beer and just spoke about events in the area, inquiring of us on a few items. He did this with everyone, talking to most people at least once a year to keep current and ensure everything stayed peaceful and orderly. He made up his mind to do their job better so they wouldn't have to since he disliked the notion of police lingering about. Everyone, including ourselves, thought this was a great configuration. It meant you could let your children unaccompanied stroll down to the lake from the worst areas of the neighborhood. Having said that, he really did not enjoy the tales we were distributing about our neighbors, especially regarding their small business. He said he had already spoken with them and they felt a misinterpretation resulting from register problems. He advised us to halt those rumors straight away and there if we wanted no problems. Although we knew he most likely wouldn't accept it even if we could show him evidence, we still wanted to show him. Since Anne waved it off as a register error, there was most likely nothing we could do to persuade him. He truly loved Anne and would usually take her word over ours. We thus agreed and apologized for any problems, stating that we really felt insulted and really wanted to defend the few friends we had acquired in the area. He went without saying much after accepting an apology and issuing one last warning. We thus just listened and decided to cease shopping there until absolutely necessary. But 2 more years changed everything. Though Mr. Peacekeeper personally went around and told every single person that they were untrue, rumors started by us because of our property dispute with Anne. People actually started paying more attention to their receipts after shopping there and started noticing the same patterns that we had. After we had pointed it out and the rumors got around the neighborhood, Anne most certainly knew about it, but she opted to do nothing and rather try to silence people with stories. Anne's son most likely pocketed enormous sums of money during this period. Small country stores like that, nevertheless, are entirely dependent on their customers, who reside in the area they are set up in. While individuals are vacationing and having fun in the sunny months, they generate a significant profit but not enough to last through the winter. And then that occurred. At last Mr. Peacekeeper linked the dots, and he was furious. Anne was right there with him as we could hear him all the way next door berating Anne's son to his face. Although you cannot even fathom how fulfilling that was merely the start. Not only did he go off on them, but he also went door to door that same day letting every single individual in the area know precisely what they were doing, even carrying a stack of receipts with him to show anyone who needed proof. Now, Mr. Peacekeeper was the one in the community who was trusted more than Anne. Literally in a 24-hour period, he had wrecked their company entirely. Every resident in the area ceased visiting. Vacationers and winter birds who knew nothing helped them still do somewhat well over the summer, but when winter struck and those crowds disappeared, they began to bleed money. 2 winters later, they were obliged to close their store for the winter months. That meant, though, they had to buy it all fresh every spring and discard more than 90% of their inventory every fall. After 3 more years, they finally closed permanently, as I suppose their expenses were not very low. That was the time their reputation in the community began to collapse, and owing to that people started genuinely valuing us more. At last, we were able to establish some friendships without having to exert much additional effort. People stopped neglecting us and treating us as though we were afflicted. Still, Anne's slide from there was only the beginning. I regretfully must include a bit more history to reach the conclusion of the narrative. Though this shouldn't take too long, or at least I don't believe so, sorry that this is beginning to resemble a short book. Anne seems to be quiet, and I mean quite noisy. Not even walking outside without her following our every move through her window or heading outside to walk her dog, pick up her grass, pull weeds, or whatever excuse she can come up with at the time. She is probably outside as well, if we are strolling about our property. We clearly aren't on the best terms with her and don't particularly want someone staring at everything we do, but we have nothing to hide. We truly don't want to be watched when we're attempting to unwind in our swimming suits. We have plans to set up a little pool and hot tub outside back. We therefore started researching a privacy fence. Wanting to be good neighbors, we gently told Anne we would be building a fence, to which she vehemently objected. We told her we intended to erect a privacy fence. We still had to live with her though, so we volunteered to talk with her about the specifics of the fence, the color, form, etc. Given that glancing toward our property seemed to be her preferred pastime, we wanted to make sure she wouldn't have to spend all day, every day staring at something she felt to be an eyesore. After all the nonsense she's put us through, we really still make extra effort to be the greatest neighbors we can. But returning now to the narrative. We intended to install the fence a foot over on our land across the whole property boundary only to avoid any conflicts, since we wanted to be sure there were no disagreements regarding its placement. This was, by the way, before she left prison. We paid for a copy of the deed and with a map of our property lines at the courthouse. To be honest, we were startled to learn she claimed around 1/3 of our land. She even had a garden on it, and a small hut. You see, our property runs over a line of trees. It is more of a half hexagon or trapezoid-like form than a straight box property as you find in several states. Where I reside, weird property lines are really typical. Anyways, the deed and property map indicates that a little triangle segment forms out of a line of trees cutting across some of our property. The trees, though, give it the impression of a square. She was asserting her ownership on the other side of the trees. She entirely flipped out once we brought this up to her, calling us liars and thieves and all kinds of other things. Having lived here for years believing it to be rightfully hers, we paid relatively little attention to the land. We so offered to sell it to her or perhaps trade it for a piece of her property so that everyone would have things simpler. She owned some land that connected to ours that was somewhat difficult to maintain. Expanding it a small distance would greatly simplify matters. Not to mention, it would allow us more space to pursue our interests. Saying that she would never pay for anything that already belonged to her and that she wouldn't even consider giving us her property for nothing, especially following our stole of this property from her, she categorically rejected. We have been in a major continuous property conflict since then. Now, something about where I live. As I indicated before, it's a pretty rural location with many unusual property lines, and property lines are rather often not straightforward. Many of the documents are hundreds of years old, and instead of X feet in Y direction, they employ transient markers like large oak tree to large rock next to stream. Many of these sites could be describing several things or might have vanished over a century ago. Therefore, it would be quite understated to claim that there are many property conflicts in our neighborhood. That, together with the fact that in some cases a very little fraction of property might be worth a lot of money, has caused our state to draft a lot of quite rigorous laws and rules controlling property conflicts, surveyors, etc. As a side note, a few years ago a landowner prevailed in a property battle against a very huge firm over just 0.1 acres of land. That paid the man over $1 million and harmed the company. Returning to the subject, given she developed our property lines rather lately, they were rather straightforward. That does not change the fact, though, that property rules are rather rigorous, especially with relation to surveyors. Like in the previous example, a surveyor might be readily bought by a big company facing the loss of millions of dollars for a small piece of land, therefore unfair to the appropriate proprietor. How then should one balance for that? Well, you create it such that the person who bought or coerced the surveyor has everything to lose by lying as well as the surveyor. According to our state statutes, a surveyor, even with honest error, who provides a poor survey by even a few feet would not only be fined heavily but also lose their license and never be let to survey once more in the state. In addition, they have to tell and reimburse every one of their customers for up to 10 years prior to the incident. The clients can then choose to pay for a further survey by a non-affiliated surveyor at the expense of the original surveyor. That is every client, up to 10 years before the occurrence and currently as well. Should they not be discovered to be accepting a bribe or blackmail, the former clients can also sue them for any damages resulting from any changes to the property line brought about by their erroneous survey and charge suitable rent for any property the surveyor may have omitted during that period. Should a surveyor be discovered to be receiving a bribe or blackmail, all damages and extra charges go toward the one who paid the bribe or extortion. This, together with the time and money lost from visiting courts and the general inconvenience caused to them, makes surveyors in my region especially likely to aggressively avoid anything even resembling a property dispute. Therefore, when a conflict arose, you might picture it not as simple as phoning a surveyor down here. It was also an unanticipated outlay of money. She found someone before we could locate someone, and I suppose she bought them or something since they presented the property line precisely as she had described, except from one small detail she objected to. She probably omitted mentioning that to them. Our land allegedly runs roughly 1 foot from her house. Oh, that was interesting to fool about with, but that was nowhere like the property she is actually trying to pilfer from us right now. She always seems to be indifferent introducing herself to a surveyor, whenever we are able to locate one, and note that she previously had her piece of the land measured, therefore hinting subtly that there might be a property conflict involved. After outlining what it could mean for anyone who would be interested in surveying our land, this quickly scares off everyone. You are clearly aware of why. Oh, did I overlook mentioning that the landmarks from the bank surveyor conveniently vanished before we ever started living on it? Not at all, indeed they did, somehow. I question how that came about. I suppose we will never know. Either way, if we can even locate someone ready to employ a surveyor, which everyone we have thus far found has given us completely ludicrous rates for, it would most likely cost us as much as that piece of property is worth. Though we are now saving cash to try to recruit someone, they are essentially risking their whole life here. That gets us to the culmination of this narrative, some few months ago. Although I apologize for the lengthy background, let us now focus on the current scenario since we are totally engrossed in it. A few months ago, a quite severe storm knocked down a tree in the contested area. Since this tree was literally right next to the road, when it fell it damaged some of our other neighbor's property, that which resides across the street from us. Not only that, but it also totaled someone's brand new sports automobile as they were traveling down the road. Although no one was injured overall, the cleanup took several days, just enough time for us to get a bill in the mail for almost $200K, practically more than our house and property were worth once we cleaned it up. Negative compliance started to take hold. Thus, just a little extra background for everyone who might not know, most property or home insurance does not cover damages to other people's property. Usually on you, even if someone is on public property like a road, if your property damages theirs and you could have reasonably stopped it, such as chopping down a tree next to the road before it collapsed in a big storm, then you're 100% liable for the harm done. At least that's how it operates where I live. We contacted them when we received the bill in the mail from some unidentified rich person's insurance company for their destroyed sports car and very politely informed them that the fallen tree was not on our property. They claimed they would look into it and come back to us after posing a few questions. About a week later, We got another letter from the insurance company with a copy of the deed and property line printout with the tree in issue circled in red, obviously on our property. They would be bringing us before court, or they were expecting complete payment within 30 days after their first warning. Give or take, that was roughly 2 weeks from now. We phoned them one more time to once more clarify that it was not on our property. The agent first argued with us a little, explaining in much nicer terms than I would have used, that someone would have to be brain dead to believe that the tree in issue was not on our property and that it would be absolutely impossible for anyone to believe it was that far off on the printout. All we did was provide them the surveyor and hired's phone. They groaned, stating they will call the surveyor and look into the situation further, but underlined we had roughly 2 weeks to get the cash ready should what we were stating not be verified. Actually, we never heard from them once more. Recall the penalties I discussed for providing erroneous survey responses. The surveyor acknowledged receiving a bribe, but there was no way he paid him enough to offset all of his potential losses. At this time he would most likely have to leave the nation. So he was not going to be able to provide the insurance company anything different from what he gave us or N. Later on we phoned the insurance company to inquire about the matter. Reading over the notes, the agent felt really content. Confidentiality concerns prevented them from telling us too much, but they could tell us that N clearly disagreed with the claim exactly as we did, stating the land did not belong to her, and that the surveyor validated the findings with them. There was no justification whatsoever for the insurance company to suspect the survey results were fake because we were not contesting them and the surveyor was hired by N herself. As long as we were not contesting the findings, N should have whole responsibility for all damage the falling tree causes. Still, they were limited to saying that. That satisfied us. It was roughly what we expected. The aftermath. Though they clearly were not thrilled about it, N had no major trouble paying the insurance company the money, as you can most likely understand given my background. Although we are unsure of their wealth or savings, it seems sufficient to cover it without having to sell any more of their territory. We have mainly kept quiet about the property conflict since then, but we are still thinking about saving money to pay a surveyor to reclaim our land. By now the focus is more on the matter's principle than on the real territory. Regarding N though, we can tell every time she looks at us now that she clearly is not happy with us. She seems to object to the fact that we let her possess our land for some unidentified reason. It's free land. How could you be dissatisfied with that? LOL. She could try to spread stories about us at this time, but it would most likely backfire since most of our neighborhood has befriended someone quite decent and nobody trusts N anymore. N is essentially caught between a rock and a hard place ever since they discovered S was practically stealing from everyone in the neighborhood beneath their noses and they knew about it and did nothing to stop it. We are merely observing the flames they set burn to the ground from behind here. Anticipated to see what comes next. Oh, this is just a little extra for everyone seeking a little more enjoyment. We opted to install an invisible dog fence for our dogs while we were considering a privacy fence. For those not familiar with what that is, bury a little electrical line under the ground and then fasten a unique collar around the dog's neck. Should they approach too closely, it will set off a beep the dogs truly dislike. Should they continue, the dogs will receive a somewhat modest shock. We had to be convinced initially as we do not believe in shock collars. One of us even held it and crossed the line. Though it was something you could feel, it did not truly hurt, just left you a little tingly. In any case, you should train the dogs to the beep before letting them run free. So ideally, they would never even experience shock in the first place. They would turn around after only hearing the buzzer. At the time, we could not afford a real privacy fence yet. We attempted to let our dogs wander about our yard and avoid being imprisoned in the house all day. We wanted to stop our dogs straying anywhere near N's land, hence we had it firmly within our own. It wasn't very long either. Though it was more than 5 feet past what she claimed to be the property line, N must have thought we were indicating where we planned to place our privacy fence or something and ran over it with her lawnmower. That day we all discovered that electrified cables do not work very nicely with electrical lawnmowers. Her mower was badly wrecked, every electrical component was destroyed. She merely wanted to be petty and run over our marks, so she had to buy a whole new mower. The best thing about it was she had no means of trying to attribute it to us since it was so far over the property boundary. She clearly tried to disseminate her rumors, but they seldom went very far. Blaming us for not even trying would have been rather foolish. She never even begged us to get her a new mower or anything. I suppose she knew our reaction if she did, laugh. Still, I hope you guys love the narrative. Another one concerns a different scenario. How my mother's malicious compliance cost her firm over $100 million and resulted in the total, permanent shutdown of her entire department. Late though, and I'm heading to bed. I will relate that tomorrow or something else. Be alert for it. My husband made me stop believing in soulmates. Now, after 15 years, he's finally opened up and strengthened our love even more. My husband made me believe soulmates aren't real. I am using a different account so that my husband doesn't know. Before meeting my current husband, I was married to my ex-husband Dave. Dave and I met when we were 5 years old. He moved into our neighborhood when he was 5. He was this cute boy next door. We became inseparable. Even our parents joked that when we would be adults we would be married. Ever since I knew the concept of marriage, I was determined that I would marry Dave. We were like soulmates. We had the same interests, the same hobbies, the similar thoughts. He was my first everything. My first kiss, my first boyfriend. The guy I lost my virginity to. Among our friends we were the perfect couple. After graduating high school, we immediately got married. I got into a good school, but I decided to study with Dave. We got married right after we finished high school. Our parents helped us find an apartment closer to our school. We worked hard. We would often talk about having kids. On our 6th anniversary we decided that we would try for a baby next year. I still remember the day when we were teenagers and cuddling, we already decided what our babies' names would be. During our 7th year of marriage, my mom got sick, so I had to stay with her for a while. I was planning to do something special for our 7th year anniversary. So I left early to surprise him. I went to my bedroom and there I saw my husband fucking another girl in our marital bed. I can never get that image out of my head. My husband saw me and his face turned pale. I don't know what happened but I threw up right in the spot. My husband was giving me the usual "it's not what it looks like, I am sorry. It was a mistake." I locked myself in the bathroom. I somehow mustered my strength and called my friend to pick me up and just don't listen to Dave. When my friend arrived she charged at Dave. She grabbed some of my things and we left. I was in a catatonic stage at that point. Eventually my parents knew, they supported whatever decision I would make. Dave's parents however wanted us to be together. There was a huge fight but eventually we settled for divorce. My whole fairy tale fantasy just shattered. I was spiraling into depression. My parents booked me for therapy. For 2 years I was like a living corpse. After that my friend pushed me to go on a date. I did but no one even came close to Dave. I was searching for Dave in every guy. But they all failed to live up to the expectation. That is when I met my now husband Jay. Jay was the opposite of Dave. Dave was funny, he would be the life of the party. I remember one time he made me laugh so hard that I fell from my chair. But Jay was not funny like Dave, he would use humor only as clapbacks and if he wants to insult someone. He was also very stoic and closed off. Pretty boring to my taste. On our first date, I asked him some questions like what is your favorite movie? He told me he doesn't watch movies. He likes reading? He didn't even ask me a thing. Except for my educational background. He talked mostly about my field of work. But he was not interested in me. We ate dinner in silence. I was 100% sure he would not call me. But 2 days later he did. He asked me out on a second date. I was skeptical of whether or not I should go. But my friend insisted. I gave it another try. Second date went slightly better than the first. He talked a bit more. Asked a few questions. We were taking it slow. He was opening up until the 6th date when he finally hooked up. TMI, it was amazing. I am someone who has a snack after having sex. I was craving for some so I asked him if I could grab something from his pantry. Even a bread and cheese sandwich will do. He told me to stay there and he went out. I was kinda confused. He came back after 20 minutes with takeout food. It was something I really liked, orange chicken. I asked how he knew. He told me you told me on our previous date. I melted right there. Dave and I have been together for most of my life, but he never made the effort of going out and get me something. That's when I knew even if he was not my soulmate I was madly in love with him. We dated for 3 years and got married. I came to know about Jay's family too. His mom and dad were drug addicts who died of overdose. He was homeless for a while but worked his way up. Throughout our marriage I was very, very happy. He was different from Dave because whenever he would see me doing chores he would ask need help. He helped me through my trauma from Dave by arranging a therapist that specializes in infidelity. He may not be a person of words but his actions tell me that he loves me. When I was pregnant with our daughter, I would wake him up in the middle of the night to either get me food or rub my feet. He would say, "Yes ma'am," and get to work. I love him. Even after 15 years of marriage my love has not stopped. He is still the stoic man I fell in love with. After meeting him I stopped believing in the concept of a soulmate. He was not mine but we somehow made it work. I love you Jay. Thanks for being there in my life. And anyone who is wondering what happened to Dave, he is getting his third divorce. His mom blames me for his downfall, but she refuses to see that her son cheated on his every marriage. Edit, I am sorry if there was any typing mistake. I am typing on my phone and the autocorrect is acting nuts. I tried to turn it off but it didn't work. Relevant comments. Commenter. Who knows, maybe Jay is your soulmate. He seems to be more ideally suited to you from the beginning than Dave ever was. OOP, from the outside we do not look like soulmates. Dave and I were the typical girl next door and boy next door kind of people. Jay was more closed off. Initially when I was dating him he was really rude in my opinion. He also has a bad temper towards people who screw up. But other than that he is good and kind. He helps those who genuinely need help. Commenter. After reading this, all I can say is fuck Dave, metaphorically, and fuck Jay, literally, in several positions, then have a nice dessert. I'm glad to hear you are happy. Hope you, Jay, and your kids have many, many more happy years ahead of you. OOP, fuck Jay, literally, in several positions, then have a nice dessert. I have been doing that for 18 years lol. And he still gets me snack. Commenter. His mom blames me for his downfall. Because it can't be the fault of her fucking child being an immoral faulty human being, could it? I am poly. I have a different attitude to sex around a relationship, but promises are promises regardless. Commitment is commitment no matter what flavor, and Dave is clearly emotionally incomplete. I never believed in soulmates, from childhood, but you know when it works, when it's right, you just had to have a trial marriage to refine your definition. OOP. According to his mom, he was devastated when I wanted divorce. She tried to convince me to stay with him even after knowing he cheated. She was angry at me and my parents when I said no. She blames me because she thinks that if I had stayed her son would not have become a serial cheater because I could fix him. His other marriage failed because he was a mess because of me. Not because he was fucking other people on the side. Commenter. Dave was never your soulmate. Jay was. Just took time to find him. OOP. When I asked Jay about if he believes in soulmates he told me, I don't believe that crap. It's just like a horoscope. People believe in it because it makes them feel better. A lot of potential good relationships get broken because of this crap. I was kinda devastated that he doesn't believe in soulmates. Can you believe in these 18 years, we have only said I love you only 5 times as far as I can count. I wanna say it more. I said I love you to my husband after 5 years. My husband, 47M, and I, 46F, have been together for 18 years and married for 15. My husband is not the type who always shows his feelings. He is very stoic, smiles on very few occasions and maintains a routine. Some even say that he is a robot. But I don't think so. I am someone who is very outgoing and completely the opposite of him. Before I was married to him, I was married to someone else who cheated on me. I used to say I love you a lot in my first marriage. But after my divorce, I had some sort of aversion to those words. Over the last 18 years, we have said I love you only 5 times. First time was when we were dating, second was on our wedding day, third and fourth when our daughter and son were born, and the fifth was 5 years ago on Christmas when we were really tipsy because of the drinks. I wrote a post about how I met him and how we got together, but it made me realize that we haven't said I love you to each other for a long time. But it didn't bother me. Even if he never said it, he always shows that he loves me in his actions. He does chores for me, he would always give me a foot massage, make me my favorite dish, even kiss me out of the blue. I do not have any complaints. He is the best husband anyone could ever ask for. But this was something that has been in the back of my mind for a while. We cuddle, we hang out, we make love, but still no I love yous. I would love to hear it and say it more often, but somehow it just makes me nervous. I decided to buckle up and just say it. It's just 3 words. So yesterday when he was reading a book on the couch, I stood in front of him and said, I love you. He looked at me and was confused. I repeated it. For the first time, I could see him get flustered. He told me okay. I was a little disappointed by his response. I thought he just didn't love me anymore. Later that night when I was lying down, he came to our bedroom and told me that he was sorry for his response. That it caught him off guard. He told me that he loves me a lot. And not even a day goes by that he doesn't feel lucky to have me in his life. I was tearing up. That was better than my confession. I asked him why we don't say that often. He told me that he doesn't say it because throughout his entire life no one has said it to him except for me. His parents were drug addicts who cared less for him. He had to start working at 14. He grew up in hardships, so saying I love you is weird for him. But also he feels like we didn't have to tell each other when we express it with our actions way more. I told him I want to say it more now and want him to say it back if that's okay with him. I saw him smile for a while and he said it is fine as long as I want it. I don't think we need to say it when we know we love each other a lot. We will probably stop saying it after a few days and go back to our mundane events lol. A lot of you people have been asking me and personally messaging me about Jay's upbringing and how he managed to survive. Well, I am not sure if I'm the right person to talk about his personal life. I mean, I heard some parts which really made me cry. Therefore, I will try to summarize it. So my husband Jay is an only child. His mom and dad were from a poor family. They were drug addicts. His household was a mess. He remembers his father pushing him down the stairs when he was like 8. Jay mostly grew up with his grandfather, his mom's dad. As far as I know, his mom was not allowed to come to his grandfather's house. Jay mostly spent his weekdays at his house. His mom and dad didn't care. They were always high and had odd visitors. His grandfather taught him a lot of things. Like handling tools, woodwork, electric repair stuff. Ever since he was little, with some advice from his grandfather, he learned that his parents are very useless. He has to survive on his own. All they know is how to do drugs and invite people to have group sex. He started doing odd jobs like dog sitting, car and window washing, gardening. He also tutored from time to time. Shortly after, his parents died of overdose. He became a permanent resident of his grandfather's house. He worked so that he could afford to go to college. His grandfather had little money for him. But it wasn't enough. He thought about joining the army at 18, but he failed the physical test. When he was 17, his grandfather died of a heart attack. His grandfather lived in a rented house, so Jay couldn't live there anymore. He was forced to live in a homeless shelter throughout his high school. He even got bullied and got in trouble for standing up for his bullies. But since he was a good student, he didn't face serious repercussions. He left the homeless shelter when a pastor from their local church took him in. He knew Jay because he worked in the church for a while. The pastor was a nice guy. He funded his living and also helped him get a scholarship to a good university. Jay studied finance and business. His entire childhood, he lived in poverty. So he was obsessed with learning how to make money. He made some connections which landed him a good part-time job during his final year. I met Jay through my friend. She worked in the same company as him. He worked as an investment banker at the time. And the rest you all know. This is pretty much it. I understand why he is so stoic and doesn't show his emotions. I once asked out of curiosity that he saw the harsh reality of life but still how he manages to stay good. He once told me about this couple whose children he used to tutor. They were a really happy family in his eyes. The husband loved his wife. He mentioned that the husband would always have a hand on his wife's body as a form of affection. Their children were also well behaved and had a good childhood. From that moment he knew he wanted a family like that. Because he never had a complete family. But he was sure that somebody would not be able to love him because he doesn't know how to show love. Throughout his entire childhood he has only seen his parents fight and cheat on each other in front of each other. That really destroyed his perception of love. If it wasn't for that couple, he probably wouldn't believe that there are people in this world who can love each other for life. It is a little wrong of me to say he displays no emotions. He does, but on rare occasions. I remember the day our daughter was born. Jay held her and cried loudly. He kept repeating, "I will protect you. I will never leave you." He did say "I love you" to both me and her. Same thing happened when our son was born. I mean, it gave me an idea to just pop out babies so that I can see his emotional face, haha. But anyways, I know he does love me and our little family. He always holds me tight whenever we are cuddling. He is really good with my parents. My parents also adore him. Sometimes, it just makes me cry knowing that he has been through a lot and I have lived such a sheltered life. Sometimes, I feel like I don't deserve him because he is very kind and a good person. Also, yeah, we do say "I love you" a lot more now. Final update. I just wanted to give big thanks to everyone who has been kind and supportive. I cannot imagine that so many people will come through because of my post. A lot of you suggested therapy. I did in the past, but my husband brushed it off by saying his past rarely bothers him. Thanks to people on Reddit, I suggested to him some articles on PTSD and childhood trauma. He studied for a bit and found a therapist for him to help him with his trauma. He only had 2 sessions till now. Few days ago he came home from work and I went to greet him like usual. He pulled in for a big hug and started sobbing. I told him it's okay. We went to our bedroom where we sat down and talked. He told me that he was sorry for being so ice cold all these years. He opened up more and said he was afraid to confront his demons, so he just kept them back in his head. He had trouble expressing how he felt. He felt guilty that he didn't say he loves more often. I am just paraphrasing what he told me. I love you with all my heart. I know I don't say it, but I feel it every day and every moment. I am sorry for taking away all those years from you, for not expressing my love for you. Words cannot express what you actually mean to me. You gave me my kids, made my house a home. I never had that growing up. I always wanted that, and you made it happen. I am sorry that I was so cold and never said I love you more. Because I do. I love you a lot. I want to make it up to you. I don't want to waste another second of my life burying those emotions anymore. It feels good to see him vulnerable for the first time in his life. I cried with him that night. We talked a lot about our marriage and the times we spent together. It was a real bonding experience. From that day on, he has been really attentive towards me. He would always come home as early as possible to simply have more time with me. We cuddle a lot and also make love. Except this time it feels new and different. Like a newfound love. He has been saying I love you to my kids. My son is confused and my daughter just said, "Dad, you're weird." He is thinking about planning a trip for just the two of us because it has been really long since we had gone on a trip alone. So thanks to Reddit. You gave me a new version of my husband and probably strengthened my marriage with him. Not that there were problems, but I hope my husband would not be so haunted by his demons now. My stepmother abused my fiancé's young brother, causing a family rift that threatens to destroy our wedding and relationships forever. Original post. Mention of child Abu *E. It's not too graphic, but it's there. I tried posting this on AITA through a different account a couple days ago, but it didn't work out. Given the trigger warning, I'm not surprised. I have since concluded my wife and I did the right thing, so this will be my last attempt to post this story. I tried to add some info and change the wording a little. All names are fake. My 28M stepmother, 49F, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26F, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc. And we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4M, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship, after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic, and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad, and refers to us as his sister and his OP, but we love him like a son. Stepmother though hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands him to refuse babysitting Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and CL usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had a thing last Sunday, and my Bill was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then made me need to include the trigger warning when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Me and Jane are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad, and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go NC if it means protecting my family. Edit. I think I accidentally deleted the paragraph where I mentioned this, but we did press charges. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous strike of luck, we also had nanny cam footage. Some commenters were right to assume that my SM hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to actually do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there is some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before and after the event. She now has a child abuse charge on her rap sheet. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2, there is a lot of additional info I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died, and was worried it would rub off on him, and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. Update 1. I want to thank everybody who took the time to read and/or comment on my previous post. It's been a tough week, but it's always great to know that people care. I haven't been able to reply to every comment, but I will try to address some in this update. This might get a little long. I'll start off by saying that me and Jane are going NC with my dad and SM. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side, but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about. Forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if Dad or SM ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them. Even if begrudgingly so, but we will never ignore, or let them forget, what they did to our family. And for the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, and any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face, as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't very fond of SM. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked SM right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role by any means possible. Taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because of all the attention and compliments that come with it. The main reason why I hated these parties growing up was because she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and mine and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt neutral about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't really any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, SM got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both, but I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago, making stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested and I'd already gotten my best friend. Or asking her sister's daughter to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece. Also, her sister's daughter is 15 and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle, since her father's gone, but her eldest brother, the Bill I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. SM was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's, and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there's nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and SM told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and the abuse charges. It insinuates that me and Jane banned them because we got annoyed with SM and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked SM, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people that didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they are not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they are so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate, after she hurt a child, just to make my dad happy has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child, even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit I understand. I love my mom too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks, because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older Bill, a twin brother and a younger sister, and I'm closer to them than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened, and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him, and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money with everybody we uninvited, and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country, and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better, and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow. It's healing slowly, but didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago, and explained that my dad and stepmonster wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad, but understands that he and SM are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Me and Jane have reassured him that he is family, we love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about Dad or SM trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Some people brought attention to the fact that SM is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree, for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black, except Luke actually is family, is what has made me accept that, while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining bio-grandfather in his life, but he has 2 amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad, but satisfied with how things have turned out. I don't like to complain about my life. It's a mess, but a beautiful one. I love my fiancé, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy. I'm not letting anyone ruin that. To whoever was annoyed at my censorship. When posting on AITA didn't work out, Jane suggested I make the writing less explicit. I'm not used to Reddit yet, so I might have overdone it a little bit. I hope this is my last update on this story, but I'll keep you posted. Again, thank you for all your love and support. Best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments from OOP. The only reason why I know that this is the first time she's hit him is because this was the first and last time she was with the kids unsupervised. Me and Jane were around every previous time she saw Luke. She didn't want my dad to babysit him, and we'd only asked him to on a few occasions before. My sister was still living with them at the time, and has assured me that Luke was never out of her sight. I know and trust my sister enough to believe her. First time or not, I will not give her a second chance. She'll never hurt either of my kids again. OOP when told to secure passwords with all vendors. We've actually had passwords with the vendors since day one. Some of the earlier ones we met actually recommended us to do it. SM did contact our planner a while back saying she had our approval to talk to our vendors. She didn't let her, and we got a bit more strict with passwords after that. Commenter, so is SM serving any jail time? If she attacked a child then and you guys pressed charges, I would imagine she would have to be processed and eventually serve some time for her crime. OOP, we hope so. We're setting up a date for the arraignment. Commenter. Start a file for SM. Keep any and all texts, voicemails and attempts of her communicating. Do the same with anyone who has taken her side because she could escalate, and you may need that info. Those people are flying monkeys and she's sent them to not only plead her case, but report back to her the things you may have told them so she can continue to play her victim card. You were great to have the nanny cam, but should also make sure to notify his daycare or school that she is not to be given info or access to him. Get cameras that have audio just in case she shows up at your house, and password protect all of your wedding vendors and let them know not to give her any info and to notify you if she tries. Your dad may be harmless, but she's not. OOP. That second advice is something we've been pretty occupied with, actually. This past week has been mostly about the kids and collecting evidence, but I'll definitely check out the JN Mill sub. Commenter, did you say that if your father and stepmonster apologize that you will allow them at your wedding? I wasn't quite sure what you were saying. OOP, absolutely not. My father and SM are not welcome at the wedding, no matter the circumstances. They could offer me an island and I'd still refuse to let them come back into our lives right now. I only plan to forgive anything far off in the future, and only if they apologize sincerely. Even then, they will have no access to the kids for years after that. Knowing SM, I highly doubt she'll ever feel sorry for what she did, so we're not counting on it anyway. Update 2. I'll start off by, probably, disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely SM will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Me and Jane are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against SM. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident, including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in LC, but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side that still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me, and whether I've calmed down, yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him, but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it, and it's clearly taking a toll on her. But she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there's absolutely no doubt whether SM attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say at the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke an ice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. And SM was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. To those who guessed SM is younger than my dad, you get an invisible cookie. She's also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They got together when I was around 15. Also, my stepbrother is only a month older than me. She turns 50 later this year, had him at 21, married his father a year later. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week, and is asked to sleep on our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old son has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her, and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. Can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. I'm not doing so good, and neither is Jane. She's usually the kind of person who tries to keep her negative emotions to herself, but she cried herself to sleep almost every night the week it happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that, and I can't help but feel like this is my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell myself I had no way of knowing SM would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately, and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before, apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and SM, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive SM. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Also, though the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now, we're not postponing it. We considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settled on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors, and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone but us. Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine, but I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. I probably won't make any more updates until after the wedding, unless something big happens. In the meantime, as always, best wishes to all of you. Update 3. I didn't plan on updating again before the wedding, but something pretty huge happened. The good news is we got the RO. The bad news is me and Jane had to see both SM and my father at the court hearing. This was our first time seeing them since we kicked them out of our house over a month ago, and neither of us were looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and Sil, So at least Luke didn't have to see them. The hearing itself went a lot quicker than I expected. I'll give credit where it's due. My father was, at the very least, smart enough to understand there was no way they were winning this. There was a lot of evidence against them. Not only did we have the nanny cam footage and Luke's pictures and medical record, but my sister had also gathered every text and email SM had sent her and the family about what happened. And SM hates speaking on the phone, so there were a lot of those. They didn't even bother to get an attorney for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against SM. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us or our property anymore. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm thinking about changing my phone number as well. I have to admit, the moment we left the courthouse was the safest I'd felt since this whole ordeal started. Jane was close to tearing up with joy when we got to the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with Bill and his family to celebrate. Hours later, my father called me. The order doesn't extend to him, so he can still do that. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I answered. I didn't expect him to change his mind and apologize all of a sudden, but decided to give him one last chance. He tried to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked me if the order was truly necessary. I stated, very clearly, that SM was never coming near Jane or my children again, and that I was glad I had an RO to formalize that. Every excuse he had for SM was pretty easy to shut down, but she only hit him once. Yep, and that's enough for me. The kids need their grandma. She's not their grandma, Mom is. She's my wife. You need to respect her. She attacked Luke, she disrespected my family in my own house. I don't owe her anything, least of all my respect. He then went on a rant about family, how much of a godsend SM was and everything she'd done for me and my sister since she came into our lives. I replied by listing every time I could remember about her lying, overstepping a boundary or acting unhinged around me, my family or my sister. I brought up both my adult life and my youth. Examples included her attempts to hijack most of our milestones, recently, our wedding plans, our son's birth, Jane's baby shower and my sister's college graduation. Her obsession with the idea of a perfect family, and her disgusting attitude towards Luke. I also made sure to mention her habits of going through mine and my sister's stuff when we were younger. It's trivial, compared to everything else, but this behavior went on until my sister moved out of their house, only 3 months ago. We're pretty sure she found out about Jane's wedding dress appointments by reading my sister's planner while she wasn't home, for instance. Some of the memories I mentioned are long and hard to explain, but they did cement the fact that SM means nothing to me. He tried to go with the whole, she doesn't feel included excuse again, but I shut him up. I said he'd had the opportunity to protect his grandchildren, but had chosen his monster of a wife instead, and that's enough for me to want nothing to do with him. I hung up without saying goodbye. My sister told me he called her afterwards, and she told him she was going NC with him as well. I think we're both starting to accept our father won't change. It sucks, but he's made his priorities clear, and his children and grandkids aren't among them. For now, that's it. Now that they're fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about sharing some of the stories I reminded my father of, but that's gonna take a while. Until then, as always, best wishes to all of you. Relevant comments. Commenter, but she only hit him once would have ended the phone call for me. OOP, I almost hung up on him when he said that. The only reason I didn't was because I knew I wasn't gonna talk to him again anytime soon, and I still had a lot to say. Commenter. I am curious how your stepbrother is handling all of this. Like, the RO is something you can't just push away. A judge stated that what his mother did was so terrible she needed to stay away from those children. It just feels like something you can't stick your head in the sand and claim that you could never believe that your mother could hurt someone like that. OOP, I haven't spoken to him since days before the RO, and he hasn't tried to contact me or my sister. He was still in denial last time we talked, but seemed a bit doubtful. TBH, I think he's the only one who isn't a complete lost cause and still has a slight chance of coming around. He's still banned, but I might be willing to talk to him about this whole thing. Commenter. Holy hell. If you are comfortable sharing, I know many of us would want to hear those hijacking stories. Hope the kids don't have too terribly long an impact on their life from this, especially the preschooler. OOP. Luke hasn't mentioned her in a while. I don't doubt he was affected by this, but I think he understands everything is okay now. Our baby is barely a year old. And if it's up to me, he won't even know she exists until he's grown. I'll definitely share some of the stories as soon as I can bring myself to write them down. Commenter. It's crazy how the court gave your dad a chance not to give him the protection order and you gave him a chance to explain on the phone and he still managed to screw up. You guys gave so many chances and your dad fails to see that SM is a bad person. Your dad doesn't seem like he's going to change, and until he does, somehow stop giving him more chances. OP, that was his last chance, and he blew it. If he ever comes around, and that's a big if, it'll still take me a long time to allow him back into our lives. Update 4. After being engaged for over 2 years, me and Jane finally got married last Saturday. We're still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we'll get there. Hopefully. The wedding was awesome. The kids had fun, our extended families finally met, and we danced so much I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his ring-bearer duties seriously, and held my son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Besides my aunt getting shit-faced and being let out on a wheelchair, which I already thought would happen anyway, everything went according to plan. It's been 4 months since we got the RO against SM. Things have been mostly quiet, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Except completely quiet, but we can't always get what we want. I never really worried about SM showing up at the wedding, especially after the RO. It's literally illegal for her to come close to us, and we made it very clear that if she tried, we'd call the cops right away. My friends still warned me to take safety measures, most of which I did. SM didn't show up, of course, but I'm a strong believer that any money spent on security is well spent, so no regrets on that end. My stepbrother and I wished each other happy birthdays, and he also texted Jane on hers back in June. That's the only contact we've had during these months. He knows that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My dad has given up on trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still trying to talk to my sister, for some reason, but she's ignoring him. A few days after she went NC with him, they had a huge fight over the phone about SM's treatment of us over the years. Insults were thrown, sore subjects were brought up, and, most importantly, my father took SM's side on almost everything. My sister called me crying afterwards. I wanted to call him and yell at him, but she told me not to. She's doing okay now. She hasn't blocked him, but doesn't take his calls or answer his texts. She's only gotten 3, a weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. After all, despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong. I love my father, and I always will, but I can't be around him anymore. While I've closed that door, I'm not locking it just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants his family back. I don't think he'll do it, but if there's the slightest chance he might, I'll consider opening the door an inch or two. This is my wife's suggestion. I'm a lot less optimistic than she is, but maybe it's important to hold on to that hope. She hasn't forgiven him though. Or SM. Jane has always been very protective of Luke, so it was no surprise that this disaster shook her. A part of me was scared she'd blame me, but she called me a dumbass when I told her that. I've been in therapy for a few months, and it's helped a lot more than I thought it would. I've realized SM's behavior around me growing up was a lot worse than I always thought, and it's great to finally be able to get my feelings off my chest. Right now, I'm more than happy. I just married the most amazing woman ever, and I have the family I always dreamed of. None of us are perfect, but I never thought life would be this great to me. I'll stick around. Reddit is a lot more than I expected, but I can sleep peacefully now, so it's safe to say this will be my last update on this. Thank you all for the kindness and advice you gave me these months. I could have never expected the support I got from you guys, and I can't begin to describe how helpful it was. Seriously, thank you all. Edit 3 days later. Okay, I updated too soon. I didn't want to write another post, so I'll just add this here. My stepbrother called me earlier today. Apparently, he and SM had a fight and he wants to meet up. I agreed as long as it was just the two of us. We're meeting up for coffee on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, but even if he does apologize, I need to know he understands how and why he let us down. New update. Hey guys. I've been away from Reddit for a few months, due to some stuff at work. But a lot of people have been messaging me about my stepbrother, so I want to give you a small update. I've been busy and tired these days, so I might gloss over some details. Feel free to ask me anything. I first met my stepbrother for coffee back in August. He'd had a fight with SM and the RO was brought up. She'd lied to him about some details, accusing Luke of picking on my baby, badmouthing Jane and more, but this time, he managed to force her to tell him the truth. My stepbrother started to reevaluate his relationship with his mother. After talking to his therapist and his friends about it, as well as the way she'd raised him, he finally accepted I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He wanted to talk to me back in June, but didn't want to distract me and Jane from the wedding. Me and my stepbrother spent the last 4 months working on rebuilding our relationship. We've been meeting for coffee or lunch and discussing his mother and what she did to our lives and my kids. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time 2 weeks ago. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we're good now. He's also making amends with my sister. In early November, he completely cut contact with SM. Jane and the kids are doing amazing. Luke turned 5 in September, and our baby will be 2, holy crap, in early February. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil, while my stepbrother stays with his girlfriend. Things are great, that's all. I'm signing off for now. I'll let you know if anything happens. Happy holidays, everyone. Best wishes to all of you.